Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 265. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always. Well, actually, I'm not joined. I was going to say I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin. As of when I'm recording this, Jim is on his way back from Italy, and friends of the show from Comic Timing, Ian Levinstein and Brent Cassina, are joining us on this episode. So I want to thank Ian and Brent for joining me and filling in for Jim, who I almost introduced on the show when he's not on the episode. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. On this episode, we're going to be talking about Flashpoint issue number 3, Kid Flash Lost. We also talk about Batman and Robin number 24. But in all those discussions, we also have some great commentary on what's coming up in September and our thoughts on each of those titles, both what predates Flashpoint and also what has predated Batman and Robin with those books, and get Ian and Brent's thoughts on those whole universes and what books they're reading and why. We also have some listener voicemails, and I really appreciate everyone calling on the listener voicemails. Our sponsors this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, don't forget the July special. All of the 52 DC number 1 issues are at a special discount. This includes Justice League of America number 1, but not the Justice League paper and digital combo. You can do that separately. But it's regularly $159.48 for all those books. 50% off, only $79.74, and that's DCBService.com doing that great deal this month. Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to remind everyone that we're going to be discussing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in August. And this is the first volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, written by Alan Moore with art and cover by Kevin O'Neill. And it's regularly $14.95, 38% off, only $9.27. So thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for supporting the show. Don't forget our show summer contest. It's running through the last day of July, and we've gotten a bunch of entries coming in, so thank you for everyone who's participated so far. What do superheroes do in the summer? These can be serious or parodies. Tell us what your favorite hero or villain does during summer vacation. This can be a song, comic strip, Photoshop picture, a spoiler warning for Jim. It could be characters of the past or the present, or even some fun with the upcoming reboot. First prize will be your choice of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen Omnibus or the Legends of Dark Knight Marshall Rogers hardcover. The second prize is going to get the alternate book out of those two. The third prize is going to get our choice from our listener donated comic book and trade prize pack. I was going to cut that out, but I'm inventing new words. I think I'll just leave that in because that's pretty funny. Entries are due the last day of July at any time zone and should be emailed to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading Summer Contest or Shownated, whatever you want to label it. But thank you for everyone for participating in that contest so far. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler show. We go in depth and plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing in the show. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Joining me for this segment are longtime friends of the show, Ian Levinstein and Brent Cassina from Comic Timing. And guys, welcome back to Raging Bullets.
Glad to be here. Woohoo! Brent's just happy whenever he's on, and he's still spiteful that it's not Blue Beetle.
Well, there is a new Blue Beetle comic coming out, and I said in the message thread that he owes me.
We will definitely have you on for Blue Beetle. It'll probably be issue 2, because I think we're going to do all of the one issue, the single issues, kind of the way we did them way back when 1 year later hit. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have you on for issue 1, I guarantee you issue 2.
I will write it down on my calendar for the issue 2 release date.
We're having you on to talk about Flashpoint first, and we're going to be talking about the Kid Flash Lost tie-in and Flashpoint number 3. But I thought before we got into that I would be interested to hear from you guys what tie-ins you're picking up and why. What made you choose the ones that you did? Because I love that this event with the way that it's crafted. You know, there's an opportunity to pick up everything. Sure, I'm doing that, but I do think because the main Flashpoint story is so contained, and these tie-ins tend to be either side story or predate Flashpoint itself, there's really an opportunity to customize whatever you're reading. But what are you reading and why? What is the reason? And Brent, why don't we start with you? What tie-ins have you chosen to pick up?
I'm mainly picking up tie-ins that correlate to books to series I was already reading. Basically, it's the same thing I'm doing with Marvel with their Fear Itself, except I'm not picking up any ancillary tie-ins, if that makes sense. I'm just picking up, I'm just keeping my playlist or pull list the same. With Marvel, they kind of, sometimes it's a side book and sometimes it's inserted in the main book. With this one, I'm kind of interested in what the main characters are doing. So I'm picking up Kid Flash Lost. I picked up the Reverse Flash one-shot, which kind of read like a rehash of Flash 13, or whatever that one-shot was of his. I didn't think it was like 7 or 8. I'm picking up the Hal Jordan and the Abin Sur tie-in. Batman, of course, which is going wonderfully so far. And the Wonder Woman and Aquaman, I think, are the major ones that I'm picking up. And other than that, that's pretty much it. Like, those would do the hit the main scope of the universe. And rather than like the little things like Canterbury Cricket looked interesting, it was Rags Morales art, but I was like, well, it's only a one shot and whatever.
Did you read issue 2 already of the Batman one?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's a huge pivotal issue, and I'll leave it at that on that one. Ian, what about you? Which ones are you reading?
Well, I actually kind of looked at this as mainly a Flash event, so I think I went with more of the Flash-related titles than anything else. And I also went Green Lantern just because I was interested in Abin Sur being the main Green Lantern of this universe, as opposed to it being Hal, because, well, I've never really seen that before, so I guess it would be worth a shot. So I actually went with Flashpoint, Kid Flash Lost, Flashpoint Citizen Cold, and Abin Sur, the Green Lantern. And I also picked up Hal Jordan, just because just having a title where it's just Hal Jordan really interests me, because, how often do you get to see that? The character stripped of his Green Lantern heritage and just being Hal really seemed pretty interesting to me. So I gave those a go.
And what I'm liking about both of those in particular is that they're mirroring each other, where you're getting Hal's events told from Hal's perspective, but when he intersects with Abin Sur, it's kind of like the other side of that story. It's coming at it from Hal's perspective, and Abin Sur, you're coming at it from Abin Sur's perspective. So those books actually kind of crisscross and then separate and then crisscross. So that's been kind of neat so far. I hope it's a trend that continues with it, because I really like it. Seems to be those two books are like editorially tight, at least so far, and I hope they continue in that direction, because I am liking the way that that's working out, with it being a look at both characters' history in this world.
And technically I'll also consider Booster Gold in there, because I had dropped Booster Gold because I wasn't really enjoying the Giffen stuff, and then the minute I saw Dan Jurgens was going to be back on Booster, and it just so happened to be the Flashpoint arc, I immediately got back on, and that has been solid. Absolutely solid so far.
Jumped back on for Dan Jurgens, absolutely.
Yeah.
Forgot about that one.
Yeah, and that's the first 2 issues that I've read so far of that have just been actually some of my favorite stuff out of Flashpoint so far. It's been the Booster Gold stuff.
I am baffled that's not getting a number 1 in September.
I agree. Yeah. I'm really hoping that, because they continue to announce things as October stuff and November stuff, I'm really hoping that's either an October or a November announcement. Because, I'm happy to see JOI as one of the titles, but you're only going to get so much Booster in a Justice League International book, because you got to share the stage with everybody else. I would just love to see a straight-up Booster book with Dan at the helm. He doesn't even have to do art, as long as you get a good artist. I just really adore Dan Jurgens' Booster Gold.
Now, guys, I wanted to talk about, you guys mentioned Kid Flash Lost, actually, and I was thrilled to see Sterling Gates writing this one, because there was, for the longest time, that rumor that there was going to be a Kid Flash series that was going to be a companion piece to the Flash Barry Allen series, and that the Kid Flash series was going to be released either during or predating the Flashpoint title. And then, it was announced that series was canceled. And obviously, I think a lot of the reasons why that direction was canceled was because of September and the fact that everything was going to be changing anyway. So to be launching, a new series at that point for this character, only to have it canceled come September, just didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I was thrilled to finally, because Sterling Gates, to me, on his Supergirl run, I thought was just a tremendous writer. So I was really glad to see him have an opportunity to write Bart. Initial impressions, what did you guys think of this issue? Because this is one that not only introduces Bart as a character from our world reacting to this world, but it also introduces that he's not the only one.
It is pretty much the continuation of the story that was going on in Flash. That even though we don't have a Flash title anymore, this is picking up just about where that left off. You have both. Pretty much the same character of Bart in there, and then you've got not the same character, but the same basic character included in there as well. With the name escapes me for suddenly.
Patty
Barry
Smith?
Allen from the alternate reality.
You're talking about the Hot Pursuit, yeah.
Hot Pursuit. Thank you. But the Hot Pursuit character in general. I mean, now it's Patty, but that Hot Pursuit continues on somewhere. I'm actually very happy to see because I was liking that a lot in the Flash title, and having it continue on here, have the story of Hot Pursuit and the story of Patty continue somewhere is nice to see because we'll have we may very well have closure with both of those characters by the time this run of DC Comics is over and we have the restart come September, which I didn't think I was going to get.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with this. And actually, we're going to get a view of, it looks like a view of the future for this Flashpoint universe. You know, what happens because of all of the changes that Reverse Flash has made to this world, which is something that I find fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here, especially with Brainiac involved. Whenever Brainiac is involved with anything involving world domination, it's never good. And it doesn't look like the world fared too well.
I was honestly surprised when we opened up this issue to see that Hot Pursuit was there, because it was not what I was expecting. At first I thought, is this the Barry Allen? Because when you first see the character, there's no indication that this is in fact a female. At least during the initial explosion and the shift and everything. Honestly, do you think that shift that happens, because we do see the explosion that happens, that chronal shift, is that the reason why she was able to cross over into this world with that happy accident?
It very well might have. It's just one of those scenarios. I mean, you never know when you're dealing with time what's going to wind up happening. And I think it might have very well been what catapulted both her and Bart into this future was just, the right time storm at the right time.
Brent, are you a Flash reader? And was this something, whether you are or not, was this something that grabbed you?
Yeah, I'm a Flash reader. I jumped on with Rebirth because of the promise of what Green Lantern Rebirth had done for that. I was kind of disappointed on that. I think we've talked about it on Comic Timing a couple times. And then with the Flash series, it's just kind of like, I mean, a lot of the stuff that they were doing, it was kind of like, I'm really curious about, because you had Rebirth coming on and we're going to be world building for the Flash, just like we did in Rebirth and stuff. And then, 1 year later, basically, we know the entire universe is changing after Flashpoint, which is fine. But to me, it doesn't seem like there's any, they're not building Flash's world. You know what I mean? They're building this whole new world of Flashpoint, and I mean, certainly this Hot Pursuit characters are new, but it doesn't feel like they're really reinvigorating the concept yet. And for me, anytime I pick up a Flash book after hearing that initial promise is kind of a letdown. But I did like this Kid Flash issue, and I'm kind of wondering if this was the the Kid Flash series we thought we were going to get coming out of Rebirth, but it was just inklings of stuff that was coming out of Flashpoint. True.
It's funny, to a certain extent I agree with you on the Flash, except one of the things I do like that they've really developed is this whole relationship with Reverse Flash, and the fact that really since Rebirth, this is a guy that has messed with Barry's life in major ways. To the point where, especially in that Reverse Flash one-shot, we get to see that it wasn't just the fact that he took away his mother. He in major ways influenced the direction and path of Barry's childhood, and maybe made him into the guy that we've always seen him as. This kind of isolated, gawky kid was because of his, the Reverse Flash's tampering all along, not realizing that was something that actually happened. So I liked that aspect of the original series. I think one of the things that hurt the Flash for me, and I wouldn't say hurt, I enjoyed it, but I think it kept it from being what you were talking about with Green Lantern, I think was delays. I very rarely do delays really bother me, but I do think in Flash's case, especially with it being a book that it had not had a chance to really establish itself on a strong end, I think those delays really kind of just took me out of the story and kind of added some distance between events A and events B, because I did feel like every time I was picking up an issue, I was going back and rereading to kind of grab back into the book. And that was something I never experienced with Green Lantern. I mean, seeing as we're making the comparisons between the two, Green Lantern's been consistently, if there was a delay in any of the titles for any reason, there was always another Green Lantern book. So I mean, you were getting Green Lantern fixes and being pulled into stories, and a lot of times the other Green Lantern title, if Green Lantern was a little late or something, Green Lantern Corps would in some way be referencing events that were going on in there, so you're never totally taken out of the scenario. So I think that's a definite difference between the two.
Well, I think that does definitely play into it. And in fact, even going back to when we were talking to Adam and Comfort on Comic Timing a little while ago, I brought up how you need to consistently stay in people's heads, or else they're going to forget about you. And I kind of forgot about Flash for a while. I forgot it was still coming out, because there was was it a 2-month delay or a 3-month delay? I think that was the biggest one. Might have been 3 months. Where there was just no Flash book coming out, and that we only had 12 issues of a Jeff Johns Flash run. That, especially as a guy who had been reading Wally West for so many years, I kind of didn't really get a feeling that Barry had quite found his place yet. And I know it's hard to do that in 12 issues of story, but it's just like he kind of came off as whining at times. How he was trying to push away the Flash family, and he was trying to push away Bart, and he was oh, woe is me, oh, my mother is dead, and all that. It didn't quite sit right with me at times.
Yeah. It was such a tonal shift from Wally, and I think everybody can realize and admit that yes, they're two completely different characters, but. So maybe we were expecting something from Jeff Johns a little more in tones of Wally, but I think even still the disappearance of Wally since the end of Rebirth is still puzzling to me. That the masthead of this Flash Rebirth or whatever was established the Flash as a legacy character, or a line of books. Really is what I think they wanted to do, like Green Lantern, where we have 4 or 5 Green Lantern books coming out in a couple months. I think they wanted to do it the same with the Flash, but in Green Lantern for the first couple months, we were visiting people. You know what I mean? We saw these other people, and then we had the miniseries that launched up. I mean, it's shot himself in the foot that if you don't deliver, I mean, obviously we're going to call you on it, I guess. But
well, and you can even compare it to what he's done on Flash in the past, because remember, he did write Wally West for a long time.
Yeah,
and he wrote one hell of a Wally West. It was one of my favorite Flash runs of all time, and. It's like you know how they say sometimes you can never go home again. That's sort of how I felt with Mark Waid's run on the Flash. It didn't last very long, but it wasn't, I think, anywhere near comparable to his previous Flash stuff. Kind of felt that a little bit with Jeff Johns on Barry Allen, how it just didn't feel quite right to me. And with this first issue of Kid Flash, I felt like I was getting more family here, like more of a Flash family aspect that I got in like the entire 12 issues of the Flash.
Yeah, and going back to what we're saying about just kind of the attitude of Barry, I never read Barry until he came back from the dead. You know what I mean? I read Crisis, the original one, but that's about as much Barry as I have ever read. So I don't know if he was this mopey and lonely all the time, and certainly he existed before we had the Flash family and all these other characters. So I can see him, experiencing, whoa, there's all these other different people. That's kind of weird. But, I mean, still, you'd think that, you're not the only person in the world with these super speed, super metabolism problems. You would be a little bit more, embracing rather than pushing people away. And I think that's what we were all expecting, is great Flash family title.
Yeah.
Called The Flash, and what we got instead was like a Batman title in a red suit.
I think that's part of the problem, though, is, I liked that he was addressing that Barry had come back in Final Crisis. Years and years have passed. He's trying to reconnect with his life, and how do you do that when so much has changed around you? Now all of a sudden you got this grandson that's there, Wally's been operating for years as the Flash. Friends are dead that you'd previously connected with. Other friends have come back to life, but they've got
messaging, the internet.
Sure. I mean, just
screens,
right?
TiVo.
I mean, the whole world is drastically different. So I actually like that he was addressing that. I think that's why I referenced the delays in this one in particular, because, like I said, some titles delays don't. And granted, anytime I'm a monthly reader, I want to read my books each month when they come out. But there are certain titles where I've known, okay, they were delayed a couple months, but it didn't ruin anything for me. It was okay because for some reason in that title, it's okay. I'm still into the book and in tune. In this particular case, I think with the fact that we were establishing so much of his new view of the world, and I do think the whole point of that story was eventually to get him to an end game where he wasn't always like that, I mean, because you're right, Barry was, there was times where it was hard to hang out with Barry, but I thought that concept, because I reread the 12 issues prior to Flashpoint. I sat down and reread them all in a couple days stretch, just to see, I'm like, is this because it was delayed? And honestly, they read much better in a short sitting than I remembered them reading the first initial read-through. Because we'd gotten to this end game with Flashpoint where Barry was starting to come out of the funk at the end, and his relationship with Bart was starting to get better towards the end. Bart had some confrontations with him, and it was leading into the events that we saw in here. I'm like, okay, there really was a planned end game for all this leading into Flashpoint. It just read choppy because of, I think, the way that it was released, not the quality of the material that was there. And
the Fastest Man Alive came out slow.
That's exactly the problem.
And what Francis Manapul said once or twice is that part of it was that Jeff Johns was just so bogged down that he had so much on his plate, because he wasn't just doing writing, he was also doing the day-to-day at DC. So some of his scripts were late, I know that. So it's hard to draw when you don't have a script. So it wasn't quite just Manapul that was the reason that these books were late. It was that Johns just had too much on his plate.
Yeah, and I didn't dislike Flash. I was expecting it. Brent hit it on the head. I was expecting it, and I think that's part of the problem too. Mm-hmm. I think it's a bad idea to go into any run and compare it to what's been going on in Green Lantern and say, we're going to give you that in Flash. Right. I mean, Reverse Flash being able to do this, though, is something that would be fairly new, which is, I think, why they're putting Booster in this, for him to see that this is happening. And obviously this is part of it does link in some ways to what was going on in Booster, because there is that whole time travel concept of changing one event, even just one event, can cause this ripple effect that could drastically change all of time afterwards, in some way. Some small person that you think is insignificant could be, that one change that, drastically changes everything. In this case, we don't know yet exactly what Reverse Flash did.
Yeah, it's curious to me, and we'll get to it, I guess, when we get to the real issue. I want to talk about how that exactly works in this universe, but
well, can I also say that one of my I guess this wasn't quite a problem, but it was something that bothered me a little bit, is that it felt like in the Blackest Night Flash miniseries that Barry and Bart had sort of reconciled, that had been resolved, and that they were...
What needed to be resolved?
Well, it felt like Bart was feeling underappreciated. Bart wanted to get to know his grandfather a little bit, and Barry opened up. And then
did
suddenly...
Barry even know he existed, though?
He did, yeah. No, he had made that clear, that he had, that he knew he existed from talking to the family and everything, that he knew that he was around. But it felt like...
no, I'm talking like right when he came back, he knew he existed, or he knew he existed when he was in his ethereal Speed Force form, whatever.
I think he knew he existed. See, that's a good question.
See, that's to me is like that's the main question. It's like, if you don't know someone exists, and then that person is feeling like, oh, I'm feeling neglected. Well, it's not the same grandpa that raised you, is what I'm thinking. But
well, wait, actually,
I'm not that boned up on Barry Allen history.
Well, wait, actually, no. He needs to know he existed. Hello, Infinite Crisis? Infinite Crisis, Barry comes back, they all...
When they pull Superboy Prime into the Speed Force.
Yeah.
Grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
That whole line?
Yeah.
Oh, good point. Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew him from that. But there's still no... Okay, hang on. Taking that out of the issue isn't whether or not he knows Bart exists. It's whether or not there's a relationship there. And there's a huge difference between knowing somebody exists. There's a lot of people that I know exist. No, I mean... Oh, wait, hold on. Let's take it out of... Let's take it even out of that broad, general statement. Because, I mean, realistically, he does... I think we've pretty much so established here. He knew Bart existed. Okay,
yes.
So we can take that off the table.
Yeah.
But the real issue is their relationship, because that's really what's being addressed. Here it's in a dream sequence, which we didn't realize was a dream sequence until we realized what was actually going on to Bart. But in the 12 issues, there was a reference to the fact that they had a interesting relationship between the two, or lack of relationship between the two of them. Barry was pushing himself away from everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think you can know that you have a grandson, and that relationship, even though there's been some acknowledgement, even if you have a good moment together, one good moment is one thing, but that doesn't mean that you have a relationship.
Yeah, all right, I'll give you that.
I guess the thing that I'm confused about is I guess we have to, because how we got Bart was... and correct me if I'm wrong, somehow Isis and Barry end up in the future, have children, one of them has Bart, and then Bart's supposed to have a relationship with Barry in the future sometime.
I thought his relationship was with Iris. Not,
it was.
Because I don't remember there ever being established.
Yeah.
He looked up to his grandfather's legacy, but Barry was already gone. Crisis on Infinite Earths had already happened, because Barry left from the future for Crisis. Okay. So Iris stayed there. Okay. So he has a strong relationship with Barry's wife. He did not have, other than the events that we talked about where when Barry seemed to pop out of the Speed Force, here and there would be an acknowledgement that he would know of Bart. But there wasn't I got to play ball with Grandpa, or, we went to the movies together, or, we grew up together or anything. On the other hand, Iris and him did have that kind of relationship. And it's a very strong relationship, which is one of the reasons why in the 12 issues, Iris is trying to pull everyone together, because she had strong ties to Wally in Wally's book. She had strong ties to Bart. She is the glue that knows everybody. Whereas Barry doesn't have that relationship.
Mm-hmm. And it's also possible that even the times that they did spend together, because if memory serves, they were in that Infinite Crisis mini bubble world for more than 6 months or whatever. So they must have gotten to know each other pretty well there. But with all this time tinkering that Reverse Flash did, maybe that never happened. Who knows? It's just in the end, it felt like sometimes things weren't quite meshing, but whatever, I can get over it.
I feel like we're talking about Hawkman right now.
Well, Bart, you got to remember, Bart actually, it's a joke. I know you're making, but I mean, in Bart's continuity is a little wonky like that, with the fact that he was an adult Flash, and then went back to being Kid Flash. So the question with Bart is, in all honesty, and it actually is a very real question, is what does Bart know?
Now, how did he get young again? Or
that was Legion of Three Worlds. Yeah.
Oh yes, because he died. That's right.
Yeah.
And then that brought him. Okay.
And I think it's been established that he remembers everything from when he was an adult. Okay. Because I mean, the whole thing about Bart is that he's always had this problem with aging. The bringing him back into the past was to stop the hyper aging. Right. So him hyper aging and then suddenly being a kid again, I don't think is that too far out of left field for Bart Allen specifically. So I'm pretty sure they've established that he remembers, he even remembers dying as part of his history. So he should remember everything from that time. I
was thrilled they made him Kid Flash again.
I agree.
And I mean, I was one of the people, very few, that liked him as Flash when he was.
I liked the Guggenheim issues. That was about it.
Yeah, same here.
Well, I mean, that's where the series led to, the Guggenheim issues. And it was funny if they'd kept going with the Guggenheim run, I think he would have been an interesting Flash. But regardless of that, returning him to Kid Flash, I think his personality and the overall way that he carries himself, he makes a great kid Flash. I think there's certain characters. Brent, you always reference Blue Beetle as being a character you like. I think Bart's got some of those qualities. He feels youthful. He feels fun. Some of these kids that are, teenagers that are superheroes, they remind us that as kids, we all liked superheroes because we wanted to be them because they were fun. A lot of the adults aren't as fun. I mean, we're talking about Barry. He isn't as fun as Bart is. Bart makes, I want to be a speedster when I see Bart. I don't when I see Barry. And that's not a knock on Barry. I just think there's a difference in tone between the two characters. When Nightwing runs around as Batman or as Nightwing, he makes it fun to be that character. He makes me remember as a kid what it was like to want to be Batman. With Bruce, who I actually prefer Bruce because of my longevity with the character, but it's as I've grown older, I don't want to be Bruce. And it's an interesting distinction between the two because I adore both as Batman, but they're different in the costume. So I think that there's certain characters that you just need to give you kind of that excitement to be a hero, that to understand that being a costume hero can be fun depending on the person underneath the outfit. And Bart fills that role. There's something about him. I connected with him in this Kid Flash Lost issue. I was trying to figure out what was going on with his relationship with the grandpa because, like you guys, I was sitting here saying, well, haven't we kind of come to an end game with all this? But this really was messing with his own fears, as a way to kind of keep him under this spell. Because once we saw him in the machine, I'm like, okay, I get it now. We got this kid in the machine, and they're messing with his head. Especially when we started to see Barry get Barry's, had his issues, true, but he got really harsh down there.
And part of the evolution of Bart over the years is that he's smart enough now to see through something like this. Because, that impulsive kid that we initially met during the Mark Waid run is not the Bart Allen that we have today. I mean, that time he spent reading every book in the library, made him smarter, but it's also the experience that he's had, both as Impulse and Kid Flash, that's made him smart enough to be able to see through facades like this. And he definitely shows that here, as do all the other members that were part of Young Justice back then. I mean, obviously Tim has grown since he was initially Robin, and Connor has grown since he just started out as Superboy. That growth is certainly apparent in this issue for Bart from his early days to now.
I'm a fan of too that being smart doesn't mean you have to lose the kid aspect of it. I mean, teenager aspect. He's not a little kid, but he's a teenager. And I like that you can have a teenager who, like you said, has had experiences. I mean, there's a lot of kids that I teach that as they've grown up have, been an extracurricular, and they've been in a football player or musician or something like that, and they've been doing it so long that they're experienced at it. So they've got exactly what you're touching on, Ian. They've got that intelligence to it where, because I haven't had maybe those same experiences, they know more than I do as an adult about that, but yet I'm the adult. There's a difference in that role in the way that I present myself than the way they do because they're teenagers. That is something that I'm a fan of that they've done with Bart. I liked what they did with the whole library thing and the fact that he was reading all those books because they never lost the kid there. And I think that was something that was a really wise move. They didn't all of a sudden make him this wise old sage. They kept him feeling young, but yet able to tap into that extended knowledge that he came through. And I think that does keep him interesting. And I hope it's something that we don't lose in September.
I certainly hope so too. And I'm a little worried because on the one hand, I am a Scott Lobdell fan and have been since he wrote X-Men back in the day. I mean, he gave me characters like Cecilia Reyes, and I even liked some of the other characters that he worked into the series like Maggot back in the 90s.
Oh yeah,
but here we are with what seems to be a complete clean slate for the Teen Titans, and
it doesn't sound like it is though. Have you seen the recent? Do you look at the source blog?
I do. I haven't seen the solicitations for issue 2 yet.
There's an interview with him on there. And so to look at it's in one of the blog interviews. I mean, it's not in depth. I mean, they don't tell you, they don't lay everything out because obviously they're trying to keep things a little under the radar. It sounds like it's meant to be a jumping on issue, but I'm not entirely convinced now that it's an entirely clean slate for the Titans. I think it's going to be a first meeting for the Titans, but I get the idea that Bart will have been operating, and it does look like it's going to be Bart Bart will have been operating before then. I don't know. Wonder Girl and Superboy are the two that have me with big question marks as far as what's their deal. But
I was glad when they confirmed that Tim was Robin, because I got worried there for a while.
And I'm almost positive I read in that interview, or at least somewhere on that site, that it is Bart, not Wally.
Yes. No, they confirmed that actually, I think in the, what was it? I think it might have been the Comic Book Resources interview with Scott Lobdell, that they definitely confirmed that it was going to be Bart, because that came up a couple of times in that. And they yet again confirmed that Tim was formerly Robin. It's just one of my also worries is that they keep calling him Tim Drake. So does that mean that the adoption never happened? That he never became Tim Wayne in this new universe? And hell, are his parents alive? So we'll certainly find that out soon enough.
They do call him Tim Drake in his current series too, though.
At times, yeah, but he usually corrects them and says, "No, I'm Tim Wayne now." He's done that on multiple occasions in the book. I remember that.
They've had issues though where they actually asked him about that, and I forget what storyline it was in, where he actually referenced it, and he said that he's still Tim Drake, but he's Tim Wayne when he needs to be, as far as for the legal aspects of it.
I gotcha. Yeah,
because I think the reason why they had to do that storytelling-wise is because depending on which story you read with him, he's either referred to as Tim Drake and Tim Wayne, and it's like, okay, so which is... And actually, it's addressing a lot of what you're talking about. Which one is it?
Right.
I don't know what his whole MO is going to be. Are they going to wipe out some of what has happened to him or not? I don't know that they would... I don't know that it would make sense to wipe out Identity Crisis.
Although, hope
not.
Yeah. Well, because I remember them saying at least in certain aspects, they said that Identity Crisis is canon. Because I know somebody asked about specifically, Sue and Ralph Dibny, and they said the events of Identity Crisis are still in canon. Whether or not all of the events of Identity Crisis are still in canon, I guess we'll find out in September, because everything's up in the air right now. I mean, all this is speculation, and none of it's really going to be known until we start reading the books. But at least part of that is that the Teen Titans themselves look like they are meeting for the first time here, and the character of Connor Kent pretty much doesn't exist. It's Superboy, so that's going to be difficult on me. But
I wonder if they're going to do.
At least we still have the titles that we read.
I wonder if they're going to do what Justice League is doing, because I know Justice League, the first arc, is going to be their origin, but then it sounds like, if I'm reading it correctly, they're going to jump to modern day.
Yeah.
So
whether or not they're doing that with Teen Titans, yeah. I mean, I guess we'll know soon enough.
I would actually, that would be something I'd like to see in the solicits. Just some clarification, which titles are in present day and which ones are going to be, because I think that would ease a lot of people's concerns.
Right, because we don't even know that about Batgirl yet. I mean, at least entirely. We don't know whether or not these first couple of issues are taking place in the past or not.
Yeah. And I don't, you know what, I guess I don't necessarily need it, because I don't want to know everything before September, because if we know that, then it's going to ruin...
What's the point of reading it?
Yeah, because, I mean, it'd be great to read Teen Titans and go, wow, I didn't expect that, and man, that's cool. Yeah. And I'm hoping that's... I'm a Teen Titans fan. Here's been my experience with it. There's been mind-blowing runs, and there's been okay runs, where they're good, enjoyable issues that, I was glad I was still reading it, but it didn't, set me off. I'm hoping this is one of those runs where I go, wow, this is cool, because the team that's writing it right now, J.T. Krull and Nicholas Scott, they're doing a really good job on this book.
It got me reading Teen Titans again. I had dropped Teen Titans, and that's the first time that had happened since Jeff Johns had written a title. Mm-hmm. I had picked up every issue of Teen Titans up until about midway through the Felicia Henderson run, because it just wasn't jiving for me. And then I picked it up again when I saw Nicholas Scott's name. I'm like, all right, let me give this a shot, because I'm hot and cold when it comes to J.T. Krull, so I wasn't sure what I was going to expect. And I really liked those first couple of issues and stayed with it, and I've been really enjoying it.
Now, Bart is one of those characters that I do want to see. This Bart, the one that we're seeing in this story,
yeah,
I want to see him present in Teen Titans because I do like him. This whole thing with the Speed Force is something that is interesting. So Bart doesn't have the Speed Force in this timeline. Is it because Barry had not connected with it? Is it because, in this is the world with Hot Pursuit, right? So the events that we see, and we're going to be talking about in Flashpoint 3, have not happened yet? Is that why he doesn't have the Speed Force?
Well, wait. Actually, I thought Hot Pursuit was from one of the 52.
You're right. No, you're 100% correct. Yeah, Hot Pursuit wasn't from this world. Hot Pursuit was from one of the 52. But what I'm saying is, though, Bart now has shifted. Is this the Flashpoint world?
I would think so. I mean, we don't know that. I mean, it could be Hot Pursuit's world, but I'm assuming this is the future of the Flashpoint world, which would make sense since Flashpoint is so bleak to begin with. If Brainiac were to invade, it would certainly be easy if the Amazons are fighting the Atlanteans and have destroyed most of the world to begin with. It's pretty easy for a guy like Brainiac to take over when everybody's feuding.
And there's no Superman. That was Brainiac's main foe has always been Superman. Superman's always found a way to overcome him. In this world, we know. I mean, we're going to talk about in a little bit what's going on with Superman. Super, whatever you want to call him. So, without having that threat for Brainiac, it would be, like you said, quite easy for him to enable this.
Yeah, and the connection to the Speed Force, you are right there, and I mean, Brent, that makes sense to you too, right? That he wouldn't have his powers because Barry never got hit by lightning at this point.
See, and that's something I'm going to wait till we get to the actual Flashpoint issue to discuss, because I have a lot of questions on that.
I'm confused about that too. Actually, I'm anxious to talk about this as we jump into that issue, because to me, I'm a little baffled, because if you consider time, this is the future, right?
Yes.
Bart is not in present Flashpoint, present day. This is the future, obviously, because we know in Metropolis, I think. Although, do we see Metropolis in Flashpoint? Because Metropolis was...
Yes, we do.
In the third issue, we do.
Yeah, third issue.
That's right, because it was victimized by obviously the meteor shower and everything. So, yeah, we'll definitely reference this again when we talk about that issue.
What I was going to say, though, is if there's one thing we've learned about the future, is that it's ever-changing. So, with Barry, who's not even supposed to be in this universe to begin with, slowly changing things, it is possible that the future itself can change while Bart's in the future. So at this point in the future, if this is taking place at the time of Flashpoint number 1, Barry hasn't been hit by the bolt yet, and the group of heroes hasn't rallied together yet. So this particular future might even change while Bart's standing in it.
Which is why he's got at the end of the issue, he's got a Back to the Future thing going on.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I took. At the end, I took that as being his existence is directly tied to this world not being his world. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, this is another problem. Reverse Flash referenced this. In order for him to become Reverse Flash, certain events in Barry's life had to happen first to influence him, to inspire him. Like, if none of those things happen, if he messed with Barry's life after becoming the Flash in the wrong ways, it wiped out his existence as he knew it. That was something that one-shot established, and has been established prior to that. But, I mean, really, that was the heavy focus of the one-shot. So if that's the case with him, then if in this world the events... Because this is our world that's shifted over. So Bart actually hasn't... This isn't like where... Barry goes to Earth 2 or something like that. This is our world that's shifted. So they actually went to the future of our world, but Bart is being phased out of existence because look at this future. This is not the future where a Bart Allen would have been raised and grown up. So time is working against him, but this is a world that does have a Barry Allen. So even though Barry has memories of our world, he wouldn't be phased out of existence. He's just starting to fight becoming Barry. I think, you know what, guys, why don't we just jump and start talking about Flashpoint 3?
Yes.
Because is there anything else you want to talk about in this issue? Because it seems like we're
Not
just...
really.
Yeah, I think this is leading us to... the only other thing I want to mention about this issue that I thought was pretty cool, it was great to see another person from our world here. by a happy accident. Patty, just because she was in those events, would obviously have stuck around, even though she didn't want to. She kept trying to get out of staying around. She's like, she basically was trying to see if there was any opportunity for anything with Barry. And when she found out there wasn't, she's like, get me away from here because this is really unhealthy for me. It was cool to kind of see yet another person who remembers the way that the world should be. I'm going to be curious to see what happens to her in the second and third issue, though. Is she going to have the same problems that we're going to talk about with Barry when we get there? So anyway, go ahead.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up real quick is with that last page in Kid Flash, it looks like he's beginning to fade away because he says in those last lines, if we don't get hit with some Speed Force lightning, I'm history. So is this his own degeneration happening, or is this because nobody ever got hit by a Speed Force? He's slowly fading away.
I don't know. I think with him it's a combination of things. I do think because of the fact that this is our world and the world itself has changed, his parents don't exist. I mean, Barry never fell for Iris, or Iris never fell for Barry in this world, however you want to term it. So the family progression path that we saw for the Allens did not happen in this world. So that's happening to him. I wonder if the nature of the Speed Force, though, means that characters like Bart, if they're charged with the Speed Force, can still exist, although Reverse Flash was having that problem with his. There's a lot of questions that I think are going to be answered. I think these are mysteries that I think we're supposed to be asking about right now.
Right.
I do think these are things that have to be answered during this. I don't think that this is like a mistake or bad storytelling. I just think it's an issue of we're supposed to be following Bart's mystery right now. Like, oh my gosh, look what's happening to Bart. Right. And I think it's an interesting side story to kind of see what would it be like for a member of the Allen family who is from the future, was supposed to be Barry's an ancestor, and if Iris and Barry never met, look what happens to this character.
It's a difficult problem, and Oliver Nome's art, by the way, really really good in this issue because I know we didn't really mention the team too much other than Sterling Gates. I just wanted to comment on that real quick because I haven't really seen much of his work before, and this was pretty solid stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the things and I don't know if you guys are having the same experience in the one-shots, I really like the creative team choices on these books because they seem to have been really well matched with the theme. Because this one was Sterling Gates was the writer, Oliver Nome was the penciler, Trevor Scott on ink. So if you like the art, you got to pat on the back to the inker as well. Right. Brian Busoletto on colors. Letterer is Desi Cienti, and that's a new one for me. Kate Stewart, assistant editor. Joey Cavalieri is the editor. It was a good team on this book. It felt like a Bart book because I was a big fan of Impulse, and it had the kind of style like Bart always to me. He's got to look a little cartoony, if that makes sense. While at the same time, it's got to feel like our world. There's always been an interesting balance with him in that. I think. You saw a lot more of the cartoony aspect of Bart. He looked like an animated series in Impulse all the time, which fit the nature of the character. But when they shifted him to being a little older after Young Justice, and even in Young Justice, there's a nice progression actually. If you look at Impulse to Young Justice to his Kid Flash stuff in Teen Titans and everything, it actually does seem like the character, his art style, has evolved along with the character evolving. And it's been pretty consistent of that kind of growth in how the character's been drawn to match his changes internally.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And one thing is that as those improvements, well, not improvements, but changes in art have happened, he's continued to have artists that know how to keep him, high on the expressions, which is good because that's something that you can never really lose with Bart, even if you change art styles.
No, and it was never lost with him. That's another great consistency between Impulse to Young Justice, straight on through Teen Titans. That's really an important character personality trait with him, is that he is one of those characters who's just chock full of expression.
Yeah.
Flashpoint number 3. This was one I was really looking forward to because I read the Project Superman story, and I really, really liked it. But the one thing that I wanted to know is what we all wanted to know was Clark. And when you see right on the cover, obviously the three of them are looking at him with this shocked expression. The only one really that would have any relationship with him would be Barry. Barry to know what to look for in this character. But this series has done a great job of establishing Cyborg as a leadership role, which was something that I've been a long time Teen Titans fan. I've known him since obviously the Wolfman and Perez run of the character and seen the evolution of the character over time. I really enjoyed his role in Justice League, but he's been kind of a background character in Justice League right now. More of a consultant, when it comes to things tech. This is more of the Vic Stone that I've always known. It was great to see him taking on this role of being a guy that you can go to. He will handle things with maturity. He's, got a good head on his shoulder, and he's capable of being a leader. And I really liked seeing that in the opening from him here, and dealing with some very tough situations where it's clear that he's trying to be, politically correct, trying to stand behind his president, everything like that, but not afraid to question decisions that are going on in politics and in government, because being a superhero and mixing in with politics do not always blend together nicely. Knowing what you know about villains or those gray area characters that are so many of in Flashpoint, there's a lot of characters that you don't know if they're hero or villain, and I don't know at the end of this you're going to be able to put a label on some of the characters. Is he really a villain? Is he really a hero? I think there's going to be a lot of characters that kind of fall in that middle ground because of the state of this world. I really liked seeing with Vic that he's putting out some straight facts to the president about, like, hey, shouldn't we be watching out for this? Shouldn't we be thinking about that? And I liked that about this aspect of the opening.
Yeah. No, I agree with it also. I think that Cyborg gets the short shrift a little too often here, and that it's nice to see him, more in that role of the major hero in the group. And I think he's the type of character that I think it feels like almost every other member of that Teen Titans has had a chance to be with the big wigs, other than Cyborg, even when he was a member of the Justice League. So it's like it's his time.
I do think, I don't know if you guys agree with me on this, I think this is September's Cyborg. I think this, not identical, obviously, but I think tone and the way he carries himself and his overall MO, I think, is going to be very similar come September. This is the kind of Cyborg, because Jeff Johns is obviously going to be writing that, and I think this is one of those characters that we're seeing a lot of how Jeff views him and how he plans to utilize this character.
Yeah,
I was less focused on Cyborg this issue. I just kind of think of him as, he's getting a spotlight, he's getting his due finally. But you know what? In 2 issues, it might go back to the same. He's just being a support character in Justice League. But so we'll kind of just see as we find out. Can I just make a comment that as I was rereading this issue today, I got tricked by the stinking shoe ads into thinking they were the next pages of the comic. Like when Barry is, reviving as a Flash, and then you have the Green Lantern shoe ad, and I was like reading, and then I go and I was like, Green Lantern? I don't remember him. I've read this already. How's he in this book? And then I caught the bottom. I was like, oh, crap.
The Green Lantern shoe ad.
Sorry.
I am Super Shoe.
That's
Super
really
Shoe.
funny.
Yeah. So the thing that I guess we really want to talk about here is with the Reverse Flash's, is that what we're calling him, or are we calling him Professor Zoom?
Reverse Flash.
Reverse Flash, okay. With Reverse Flash's explanation in his one-shot issue in the regular series, in the Reverse Flash one-shot, it's hard to say 3 times fast.
Reverse Flash one-shot.
Reverse Flash one-shot. That came out last month. He basically says he needs Barry to be alive to create the Speed Force, right? Okay, so in this Flashpoint world, in the first issue, Barry is alive, but hasn't created the Speed Force. So how, I guess to me it was confusing as how does Reverse Flash go about in mucking up time to where there's no Speed Force for this long period of time until Barry actually remembers stuff because of whatever happened and then creates it in this issue.
Well, he did that before this happened to Barry, where he doesn't have the powers. Because remember, he would have done that when Barry was still operating in our world. He went back through time and made those changes. But it does go into that. It's going to be a wonky thing, because then the question becomes, well, then if he has, because we've seen him speed around in those issues. So how is he able to do that and Bart's not in the future? And those are questions that I want answered.
Like you go, I would think that Reverse Flash would muck up the time stream, then go to the future of the Flashpoint world and live there or whatever until Barry gets to this point, and then be like, I have my powers back, Barry must be up to something, and go back, and now I'm going to mess with his head or something like that. It just creates for a really, really weird timeline. Like, I like the idea of he can't kill Barry, but I think what they should have done is kind of thought this through and left out the.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Yes, you create the Speed Force.
That contradicts, though, what we've seen from him in that one shot, because the whole point of everything he did in the one shot was to see how it affected Barry. So if you're building from that into this idea of what he's done here, then he has to stick around in present day to see how what he's done now has affected Barry. Because if you looked in the one shot, it was through the years of Barry's life. Yeah. He did that thing that he did to Doug, and then he did the stuff that he did to his mom. And then that would lead to now saying, okay, now that I've done this to Barry's outside world, how does this affect Barry now? So and if he doesn't watch and see how that all happens, it defeats, because he wants to kill Barry. That's obviously what he wants to do. So seeing as he can't do that, he's trying to give Barry a fate worse than death. And it's become like his drug. It's become his thing where it's like, I've got to be there. I've got to see what happens to him. And he found humor in saying, Mrs. Allen, it's great to see you alive again, and that type of thing. Those little tidbits that we got from him in there. My confusion, and it actually matches yours, because I'm going to back you up on this. My confusion is, how is he able to still speed around? I don't have a problem with how he did what he did, because all of that would have happened with Barry having already been in power. So, but now that the world has shifted over, my question is, how is he able to still zoom around if Barry hasn't become the Flash yet?
That's what my thing was right
there.
there.
And going off to, and Bart's series seems to indicate the same question mark.
Right.
I'm hoping that at some point we get an answer to both of those questions, because they seem to kind of cross into each other as far as how is this happening, that he's able to run around, Bart's not able to, Barry hasn't become Flash yet. I want to see how this all comes together and makes sense that this is able to happen.
And shouldn't he have even written himself out of existence, Reverse Flash? Because if he's changed things to the point where Brainiac is the dude in charge in the future, I don't really see how Zoom even exists. I mean, yeah, I know he's a time anomaly or whatever, just like Bart is and just like Barry is, but that just confuses things even further for me. unless what happens here with Barry in this leads
issue.
To him. Yeah, it's one of those catch-22 things.
But it does going off of Brent's, because Brent mentioned, I think it was Brent you mentioned, and we were talking about the Kid Flash issue, or it was Ian, I don't remember which, if the events in issue 1 were happening at the same time,
that was me. Yeah.
Okay, perhaps of what was going on in Kid Flash, then Reverse Flash should be having the same problem.
Yeah.
And then this issue should make all of that work again afterwards. So I guess those are the big questions I have. The Speed Force is making my head hurt. Now it could be fixed, because we've still got 2 more issues after this, and we've also got the Kid Flash story. So somewhere along the lines, it could be fixed where it makes sense. I'm hoping it is. That's a hope because right now it's a big question mark I have, and I want it to make sense when it's done.
And you know what? I'll even say it right here. Us, analyzing this to the bone and all this continuity stuff is kind of the exact reason that DC is starting at issue 1 on everything. I think, because
I like this stuff. See, I actually know this conversation. Like when Brent was bringing that up, I get into those kind of conversations. So the second he brought that up, I'm like, no, this is the kind of geeky comic chat that's fun to have. It's fun to try and figure out how this is going to happen. It's fun to hope that they do address it at some point, because a lot of times when creators get clever and they do address this, and I'll let you go back to this. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But a lot of times when creators,
I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that us talking about this is a bad thing. I'm just saying, in order to get Joe Schmo to read comic books, And if you were to try to explain Flashpoint to Joe Schmo on the street, and there's all these, continuity issues and whatnot, and oh my God, I just pulled a whatnot. Hi, Jim. How would you? I mean, how would you get around that?
I am so tired of that. You know why? Look at the popularity of a show like Lost. I jumped on Lost bandwagon a little late, and I ended up watching a lot of the seasons together. Yeah. There was so many continuity issues, and I'm not. This is not an insult to Lost. I loved Lost. This is a terrific show. I get, so people are Lost fans out there. I was glued to it, riveted. I kept, watching episode after episode, even with some of the craziness that was going on in it, as far as where you could go with wonky continuity and all that. It felt like a comic book to me. See, and I think if you look at the popularity of a show like that, I think a lot of times we as fans and we try to make it seem like it's so hard to get into this. When we were kids growing up reading this stuff and there was a lot more readership in comics, this continuity stuff existed and there were these problems. They went all the way back to, when there were multiple titles that started intersecting on some level. There's always been continuity problems in comics. And I think it was more so in the past when people didn't have as much access to, go, well, why is Batman able to do this here with Superman, but he's supposed to be doing this over there? That always went on. I think we try to make it seem like that is such a hard thing for people to grasp.
But it's been happening for years.
Yeah, I think comics problems right now have nothing to do with the storytelling. I do think there's some people who aren't going to jump onto comics and all that. I think more of the issue is making comics accessible to new readers and giving new readers a chance to read comics. We talked about this actually on your episode a little bit, about how I don't think comics target potential people who might enjoy them in a way where they will continue to follow them after the fact.
Right.
It's a whole other problem. And actually, your two guests hit a lot of the problems on that on your episode. So I do recommend people listen to Comic Timing. There's a great discussion as far as, what are some of the problems with getting new readers into comics, especially issues of price and jumping on points and things like that with comics. I don't think the issue is continuity, though. I really don't, because shows like Lost have proven. Did you guys watch Lost?
Yeah. No, I was a fan of Lost, but I got into it in season 2, so I'm somewhere similar to where you are with that, Sean. Jumping in and having to sort of get to it. But I caught up just by the that one, like right before season 2 started, they had that one catch-up episode, and that told me enough where I was able to just watch it. And
I watched it through DVD beginning to end. There's a lot of people. I'm not talking about people who didn't see all of it. I'm talking about for people who did see all of it. There were multiple times through that show where you go, what the heck just happened here? And it was riveting. So, you can say that, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think comics are really one of these things where there's a big wall that's put up and, oh my gosh, there's continuity. People aren't going to enjoy it. I don't think that's the issue. I think we like to use that as an excuse and try to make that seem that's the reason why people aren't reading comics, instead of addressing the fact that there is a whole lot of competition for comics out there. And I do think that we aren't targeting potential fans in a way that they will jump on board. I think there is an audience, an untapped audience for comics, and I don't think the problem's continuity.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, you sort of convinced me a little bit with that, so I'm glad I did bring it up. But I know that there will be some people that just feel like there's too much to learn. But maybe starting with this issue 1 thing is a good way to get people to. And
they wouldn't watch Lost.
Wouldn't have otherwise. Yes.
Well, and shows. Wait, and actually to back up your point even further, I really enjoyed the event, but it was one of those I enjoyed the event more as the season went on than I did on the initial episodes.
Yeah, I did too.
I tend to be a fan who will, if I like a concept for a show, I'll follow it, even when I thought it started a little slow, but then it built into something where there was a payoff for me sticking around for it. And I think a lot of people, we know a lot of people jumped off before there was that
universe. Perfect example.
But so that backs up your point there on another end. So I do think continuity sure can be a problem, but I don't think it's a reason why people won't jump onto comics. I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that I would have been perfectly, and this is more silly, I would have been perfectly okay if by the end of this issue, instead of turning into the Flash, Barry Allen had just turned into the Mummy.
I kept waiting for Brendan Fraser to pop up and go, ah! Like he did so much in those films.
I was glad to see him so hurt, though, because, if I'm in that much agony, and I know that if you give me the right jolt, I'm going to get some powers that heal me. There's a definite reason why he would go and do this again, but I loved Batman's reaction to this.
Yeah.
Because this is Thomas Wayne. He does not have a concept of the Flash. He is really going off on faith at this point that this lunatic might actually be right. This tells you how much Barry has at least suspended a little bit of Thomas Wayne's disbelief. But I love that it wasn't just blind loyalty. That Thomas Wayne, through his dialogue and through internal dialogue through this, is really saying, this dude isn't he wants you to do what?
He's a doctor too. So it's like you want me to take you outside and shock you again? All of my doctor training says you're an idiot.
But are you reading Night of Vengeance?
I'm not. I'm hearing it secondhand from people, so I know what's going on. But I just haven't picked it up.
Be reading it,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to spoil anything for you, other than say I know Brent, you read the first issue of it. I think when you read the first issue of it, you get why this guy isn't really too worried about whether or not a lunatic's going to die.
He's a hard ass, man. He's just like whatever. It's his way or the highway.
This is not your daddy's Batman.
I mean, I know what happened in 2. I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but I just by being online, I know about it. And I am looking forward to reading this in trade at some point, just because I feel like it's probably going to read pretty well collected. I mean, it's apparent to me just even reading this that this is a different Batman. I mean, obviously with the medical training and the difference of losing a child versus being the child who loses the parents is going to bring you a very different Batman, because this is an older guy and a more jaded Batman than what we're used to. So it's apparent for me just reading Flashpoint that's definitely the case.
Oh yeah, to say that he's more jaded is an understatement.
Oh yeah,
and I don't even know if that's even that's almost oversimplifying what's going on with this guy.
Yeah.
He's got a whole mess going on in his life, so it's not as simple as jaded. It's he is definitely a part of a very crazy. If Gotham is actually darker than our Gotham, which I didn't think that was possible. It's a much darker place. This Barry Allen sequence of events, this is something that I am finding fascinating with him, is that because he is somebody who's alive in this world, and he has, it's not an issue of him jumping into a world where there's him and the Barry Allen in this world. It's our Barry. It's our world. Barry's having conflicting memories. He's got 2 sets of memories. He's got the Flashpoint Barry memories conflicting with our world's Barry's memories. And he is fighting to hold on to our world because he knows that there is a potential. But he's got like an amalgamation of this. This is one of those things, and I don't know if you guys are having this experience with this. When I'm seeing this, I'm like, okay, these might be the first glimpses into why our world is going to be somewhat different come September. Because a lot of this is going to play off of Barry's memories, and maybe not just Barry's, some of the other characters who are aware of our world and some of the conflicts that are going to go on between them. I'm wondering if this is why we're going to get a amalgamation of sorts of new things along with traditional things that we're used to. If Flashpoint is going to explain the changes to our world by the end due to Barry's memories. I don't know if you guys are having that experience. This is speculation, as you mentioned earlier, Ian. So I'm throwing this out there. I don't know if I'm right, wrong.
Well, it would actually make a little bit of sense, though. And Brent, I don't know if you might want to back me up on this or not, that specifically Green Lantern becomes untouched at the end of this, because who's a closer friend to Barry than Hal? So he probably knows more about what's going on with the Green Lanterns than anybody in the DCU. So for the Green Lantern Corps to come out of this as it is makes sense to me a little bit. And the same can be said for Batman, because with all the stuff going on with Thomas Wayne here, he's making certain that Bruce comes out of this as Batman. So it also kind of makes sense to me that he comes out of this almost exactly the same as he was before Flashpoint.
Yeah, it's one of those. I don't know, Brent. What are your thoughts? Do you have any theories on this as far as what's going on with Barry? And do you think it will play into any of that?
I'm kind of thinking that it's something's going to happen in the last issue that kind of is, the butterfly effect, and that it's not really. It might be his memories. It might not be, but I'm not really focused on that. I was kind of focusing on the last couple of minutes. If I thought maybe this would be more interesting if in this issue Barry didn't get his powers back. I thought I'm still enjoying the story, but almost as a challenge to Barry without his powers, I think is a greater thing to accomplish to fix the world rather than just get him back on the second try.
Except so if he was just the Mummy for the rest of the series,
the Mummy for the rest of the series, and then decided that I need to put up this idea that I know what I'm talking about. So then I'm gonna make this red Flash costume and parade around in it like I do have my powers, but just never use them.
I'm thinking, though, my problem with that is going back to the contradictions you mentioned earlier. I'm hoping that him getting his powers back will be explained as, that's how Reverse Flash is able to operate because this happened. Bart's able to operate because this happened. I want some of those things cleared up. So I looked at Barry getting his powers as being the first step towards answering some of my questions that I've had. Because when you brought those up, I'm like, no, these are questions I've had. I'm like, I'm in tune with you, Brent. We're totally having the same questions. So I looked at him getting his powers back as the first steps towards me getting some answers as to why what's happening with Zoom is happening. What's happening with Bart will happen. I'm wondering if the nature of Zoom's power has something to do with the fact because it's not the same Speed Force. It's the reverse Speed Force or whatever. Might be explained as the reason why he's had powers all along and Bart hasn't. Because Bart's got two things going against him in the sense that Barry and Iris don't wind up together in this world, so he's phasing out for a whole different purpose, whereas Zoom would still be alive. I guess, although that future, who knows? I've got a lot of questions.
I don't know. I mean, maybe his parents were in a breeding camp together. Who knows?
Having a guy from the future, which I do hope that Bart's series does address this, because I wonder if maybe we will somehow see him in that series, in that 3 issues. Get to see him with somehow being addressed as being in the future. I don't know. I don't know how far this is going to be able to go as far as that goes and explaining Zoom and what's going on, but I still have those questions. So I guess I was glad to see, while I agree with you, that sounds very interesting to see Barry step up and do that. I think that him getting his powers back gave me some hope, not because I necessarily want to see him flash up and do all those things. I wanted those conflicts to start being resolved. So I guess I wanted to see it for different reasons. Although I agree with you 100% that does sound very interesting to see him without the powers.
And I think one of the other interesting things here, and this is related to both Barry and hell, even to the Kid Flash series, is the trying their best Barry trying his best to hold on to the memories of the previous world, because as he's here longer, the memories of what the world are now are slowly being overwritten by what he knows, because he's an anomaly, and what this time tries to correct itself, and because there is no other Barry Allen in this world, he's slowly just becoming the Barry Allen that was in this world to begin with. And I think it's actually one of the best parts of this series is him doing his best to hold on to what he knows as long as possible. I'll also be curious whether or not Patty starts experiencing that over in the Kid Flash series. Yeah. But that could also be a problem that comes up.
Or what does that mean for her if she doesn't?
It's true. Yeah, it's very true.
I love that he basically hooks Barry up to the flux capacitor.
And if we don't get this at 88 miles an hour...
Right. You got to really have faith in somebody's crazy.
I really wanted Batman to scream out "Great Scott."
Yeah.
I just picked up those movies too for $15 on an Amazon sale, so I'm looking forward to sitting down and watching them all again.
Nice.
Yeah. And I like Lois in this a lot. I'm really starting to like that. In fact, that might even be one of the other series that I wind up picking up in trade. The Lois Lane series. Just seeing that spirit that we know Lois Lane is known for continues in this Flashpoint world as an embedded reporter. Working for the Americans. Within Themyscira, or at least New Themyscira, is pretty cool. I liked it a lot.
One of the things I'll tell you that the first issue addresses, this won't spoil anything because it's right in the beginning, it does explain how, right away from the get-go, how she got involved in the Resistance. That's explained right away in the first issue because it is a story that predates that. It also gives a little bit of a different perspective on the Amazons because of where she's at in it. It's not because it's not the series that's focused on like Diana's backstory. It's focused more on a human woman dealing with the Amazons in this war-torn world. It gives you a different perspective on that. So I would recommend it for anybody who's reading the Wonder Woman story. You don't have to be reading either or because there's not like an event from the Wonder Woman story that's revealed in Lois Lane or anything. It doesn't work like that. It really is Lois Lane's perspective on this world, but it does give an interesting picture of the Amazons that is not brought up or not able to be addressed in the Wonder Woman story, which I liked. I quite liked that we got to see something different because it was from the human end of it. So it's kind of cool.
Right. That's cool. I'll have to definitely look into that then. And best words of speaking of the Resistance, name's Grifter. Welcome to the Resistance. I was just like, I was not expecting that so soon.
Well, and I feel like a dunce now because it wasn't really until I was rereading this tonight to get ready for our discussion here. We were talking about the leader of the Resistance, and Jim and I have been speculating on the show, is that going to be Cyborg? And then Jim was throwing out, well, maybe it's Green Arrow, meaning, it had to be somebody from the U.S. Not thinking about the fact that we haven't identified yet the real leader of the UK Resistance, which is what we're finding out here from Grifter. Grifter's the leader. I feel like an idiot.
I wonder what happened to the rest of Wildcats in this universe.
Well, and with Grifter getting his own solo series coming in September, that's why I'm starting to wonder if certain people... I don't think it's just going to be Barry. I'm wondering what characters are going to influence, because it seems like things that are a part of this world are going to come back to our world.
So sort of Age of Apocalypse that way?
Well, here's what I mean. Grifter is not... he's part of the 52. He isn't in our universe. That was never established as him being a part of the DC universe proper. Come September, he is.
Ooh, that's... Yeah, so what you're saying is that this universe created a separate...
It's a different Grifter. Kind of like how Hot Pursuit is a different Barry Allen.
Huh. Okay.
So I don't know if I'm right on that, but this was something when I saw Grifter here, it started to make. That's why I have this theory going. Like, well, maybe this world and people in this world are going to have an influence on shifting it back, because we have characters that are appearing in September that have appeared in Flashpoint that we have not seen in the DC universe proper, like Voodoo, for example. So I guess some of your questions are being answered. You said, what happened to the rest of the Wildcats? Well, Voodoo's got a book in September.
That's true. So, and Stormwatch will be around, so they might pop up in that. It's just my other question, and this might be stemmed to it, this might not be stemmed to it, is whether or not the 52 was affected by what's happening with Reverse Flash here, because the whole reason Hot Pursuit came to our world was because of a disturbance.
Right.
So were the rest of the 52 affected by this? Is there even a 52? After what happened with Reverse Flash? I mean, did it affect how these worlds were formed? I mean, who knows?
I'm going to guess that this didn't affect the concept of there being a multiverse. I don't know that they're going to go out of their way to go multiverse crazy in September. So I think the simple answer is I think that there's going to be a lot of question marks about the multiverse come September. But I'm assuming Morrison's multiversity series is still a go. I'm assuming all that's going to happen. I think, because this has been billed since the beginning as being an event that takes place not in the multiverse, on our world. Now, could this affect the 52 in some way? Sure, that's a possibility, because this was billed, our world was billed as the central Earth. Wasn't that something that Hot Pursuit, I think, addressed? I think when the reason why Hot Pursuit felt the need to come here because this Earth tends to be a central one or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think those were his words.
Yeah. So I mean, there is a possibility of that, but there's been no reference in this other than Hot Pursuit. There's been no reference to other Earths in this, so I'm more inclined to believe that we're not going to get a whole lot of reference to multiple Earths. Although, as with anything, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 issues. So who knows? Yeah, they could throw that out the window in the next 2 issues. This seems to be really heavily focused on what's wrong with this world and that it needs to be made right.
Well, at least we can safely say that Batman doesn't know anything about 52 Worlds with his compact Presario PC that he's working on.
I love that. Just that the oppositeness of him. He kills, Bruce doesn't. Bruce loves his tech. This guy's just like, he's low tech. Is this the only computer you got? Yes. Why would you need more than one?
Well, he's not about. He does work.
He's not about detective work. I don't think.
He's also not about working with a ton of people. I don't want to go too much into his whole MO because it is something better served in his series, but it really is for him. People work for him, not with him. There's a huge distinction between his way that he operates and the way Bruce does. Because Bruce relied heavily on Oracle as being kind of his whole connection person to the whole universe, and I can't really say too much more without spoiling a whole lot that's going on in the Night of Vengeance series. I will say for anybody who's heavily interested in Batman. In Thomas Wayne as Batman. If you aren't picking up Night of Vengeance, the first 2 issues have been absolutely tremendous. They aren't necessary for any of this Flashpoint story, but they really do flesh out the backstory to this Batman, flesh out his world, what it looks like. It's very similar to the other books in the sense that it's material that predates what we're seeing now. So there's no reference to Barry and all that because this hasn't happened to this guy yet. But it will give you an idea. It's basically Batman Year 1 for this guy.
Okay. Dollar bins at New York Comic Con. That's my explanation.
Yeah, I would definitely know. It's definitely worth picking up. But it's great. The great thing is when you do read that, and if you go about that route, you don't need to feel like you got to go back and read Flashpoint to enjoy the story. It's very contained.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad.
Very similar to the other ones that have all been here. There's nothing that really. Needs to be read along with this. They're all doing kind of their own thing. And Booster's doing a great job of that. I like Booster's story a lot because it's just a really good Booster Gold story set in this world.
Yeah, I love bringing in Adam. that Captain Adam is the man controlling Doomsday in the Booster book is just such a nice little continuity bit in there. Bringing in a character that we're familiar with in a very, very different role. I'm loving that in Booster Gold.
I'm kind of hoping that in the last issue of Flashpoint or Booster or whatever, they kind of intermingle, but in such a way that it makes fun of Booster. Like, Booster shows up and be like, hey, I'm here to help. And Flash is just like, who the hell are you? You're a joke? Get away from me. And Booster just kind of like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll just, let whatever happen, and then Flash fixes it, and Booster's like, jerk, or something like that. I think.
Booster just screams out, I saved your life once!
Exactly.
That's not the only appearance of that character, and I won't say where, for if you end up reading other series and all that, you'll see.
Project Superman has him in there, too.
Right. And it's one of the great things is I feel that character is being very consistently written in his other appearance. So it's, a lot of times, we're quick to complain when editorial's not tight on something, but in this case they should be applauded for the use of that character because it makes sense that he would appear in both, considering the nature of the series, and it really feels like one is a younger version, or relatively younger version, because timeline-wise it's not that much different than the events that are going on in Booster. But I think that's great that there's characters that are being used in multiple titles and they all feel like they're a part of this world, and then there's an acknowledgement that they're the same character with the same backstory.
Well, that's good. That's good. Hey, I have a question for you.
Sure.
What use does Cyborg have for a blow dryer on his arm?
That Afro sheen, man. Gotta keep it dry.
I guess so. It is raining.
He's got half of his hair there, you know. Hey, wait,
It's just I'm looking at the gun and I'm thinking, like, is he actually just getting rid of all the rain around?
Wait a minute. I'm gonna defend my man here. Okay, speaking as someone who's 40, who has less hair than he did when he was 20. Okay, you cherish it a lot more when you have half of it than you did when you had a full flowing hair head of it.
What he did was he shaved one half of his head, covered it in metal, and then transplanted those into the front where it was receding.
There you go. There you go.
You know, it looks like he's got a full head of hair under there, but
that's the whole reason he's a cyborg.
Exactly. He wanted
I'm not just I'm not just the owner. I'm a client. But I guarantee you, that's not his only hair product that he has on his cyborg uniform anymore. It's funny.
Vic Minoxidil, that's his name.
Yeah. I actually, one other thing I want to address with Barry, I like the gradual. Like, I'm glad that he wasn't just instantly healed from all of those burns. I was glad that when we saw him in the Batcave, we got to see his hair coming back and stuff like that, but there were still, bruises and scars and cuts, and he still needed bandages in certain places because of the fact that, yes, it was clear that he's got rapid healing, but you see it all over all of his skin. There's still burns and things like that have not yet healed because it's just going to take a lot of time because he hasn't reached that level of power yet. And that's they're establishing here that this is a Barry who, yes, he has connected with this, and maybe we're going to see some of what Brent was asking, not to the same level as not having his powers, but Barry's going to have to deal with the fact that he is not as fast as we traditionally know him to be. And he isn't able to do the kind of just jump into the past and do all those things. There's some limitations to what he can do right now. I wonder if these limitations are going to stick around post this.
That would be interesting, actually.
I think that's one of the things you can always appreciate about Andy Kubert. Just talking about the art here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad that we get to see Andy Kubert delivering something on time. Probably because he had a lot of lead time. We had that teaser at the end of Flash Rebirth for this. And that was over a year ago. So I'm assuming he's got no delays with this, and especially with the relaunch and stuff. But it's just, it just makes me. It's easier to be a fan of a book that's coming out on time with great art than one that's not. Now, whether or not that they gave him a lot of lead time or whatever, it doesn't really matter. This just increases my appreciation for him, when you get it monthly. You know what I mean? Because, but even going back to like the detail stuff, I mean, when you see Crypto's skeleton, and the like you were talking about, Sean, the scars and stuff like that. Even in his Grant Morrison Batman run, you saw the Zurin R. If you go back and reread those, there's the Zurin R spray paintings, like even in the first and second issue, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's just. He's just an incredible artist with a huge attention to detail, and I think it's good that we get to see him, spotlighted, I guess, in such a good way.
This is the best he's looked since his X-Men days for me. I mean, I liked his Batman stuff, but this is like leaps and bounds for me.
What I really liked about this, you mentioned Project Superman, and I'm not going to spoil any of Project Superman other than to say. You can have read the first issue of Project Superman and read this, and nothing that happened in this was spoiled at all. Because Project Superman #1, just for people who haven't read it, I'll just give a quick little blurb for it. The premise is really establishing in the first issue how Earth is and why Earth is handling alien contact the way that it is. So this whole Superman sequence is totally exclusive to this, totally new to this. We're all, no matter what you're reading, on the ground floor in this image. So after Crypto, when we go and see, the big S there, and the actual door opening and the reveal of what actually, because, who would Barry go to if he needs the most powerful being on the planet? Let's find Superman. I've got this world's Batman. I'm connected with Cyborg. I'm trying to, in my own way, put together whatever version of the JLA I possibly can, because Zoom's made that an impossibility for me. So I'm going to try to do what I can to put a band together. When we all see Superman here, no matter what you're reading, this is our first time seeing Superman, Subject 1.
Okay.
And, oh my gosh, I don't know, I should have expected that. I knew it wasn't going to go well. But I thought it was going to be more in that he was going to be either violent or something, or, that he wasn't going to have the personality of the Superman that we're used to. I didn't expect him to be scrawny, but it would make sense with him being away from the sun so long that he would be. And I don't know, did you guys expect this? Did you expect that this was what you were going to see when they revealed him finally?
Not at all. Not at all.
No, and I really appreciate that it's something totally different.
Yeah. No,
like everything else in this world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I was expecting somebody in. Actually, part of me thought that he was going to be in traditional Kryptonian garb. That he was still going to be, wearing something reminiscent to what he landed in. Because, when this series first started, I had no idea whether or not Krypton even exploded. And when we finally get to this point, and you learn that a rocket crashed in Metropolis, and that thousands died because of this rocket. It's a shock. And then when I saw Crypto's skeleton, like, I actually recoiled. This is what the world is coming to, in their fear of extraterrestrials because of what happened. That they were to just run experiments on an animal until he's nothing but a skeleton left, and Superman himself is nothing but a skeleton. They haven't allowed him to see the sun, so he's never had a chance to develop any real muscle. And when they ask him, it looks like he's never seen a human before. He probably hasn't seen more than 5 humans in his entire life. It's probably been the same scientists over and over again. Yeah,
because he's clearly seen somebody in order for the fact that he's able to speak.
Right. Yes.
But you're right. It's been very limited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I think is so great about this, is that this is completely a different character. Like, this might be Superman in that he was a baby that crash landed onto Earth, and that's where all similarities cease. Other than the fact that he might very well be a good man, we'll see.
Is he though? See, that's the funny part. Like, Barry on this one, I don't know that I agree with Barry, because Barry says, I can say with all confidence that no matter where he was raised, he's a good person. Yeah. I'm going to be curious to see how they play this. Yeah. Because I do believe there's a certain point to nature being a part of that. But I don't think that people are born being good people. No. I think that they have. I think people have a potential to be bad people due to nature more than where they're born with some chemical imbalance or something like that. So you can say he has the right genes to be a good person. I'll buy into that to a certain extent, but he has had no nurture,
and he's been abused. Obviously, he's been poked and prodded. Yeah. So and what happens when people have a history of abuse? They also have a history of lashing out a lot of times. So even if this is a man that Barry says is always good, nature and nurture are both a part of this, and he hasn't had nurture. He definitely hasn't had nurture in this realm here. So this is going to be something. It's funny. I actually picked up at when I was in Philadelphia about 2 weeks back. I picked up at, of all things, a record store. They happened to have a couple of random comics lying around that I got for $1. Superman Speeding Bullets, the Elseworlds where Superman's rocket ship lands in Gotham and he becomes a Wayne.
Yeah.
And grows up to be Batman. And that's a perfect example of how different nature and nurture can create a completely different Superman than what we're used to. So who knows if this is a good man right away. We don't know that other than Barry saying, yeah, sure he is.
Except I will say that he wasn't raised in an environment where he would be a bad guy. Like, I don't necessarily feel like I feel this is a kid who's very timid. because of, like you said, I don't think I am going to say he doesn't look like he was abused in the sense like there aren't signs that he was beaten. He's just been isolated. Actually, he's a lot more like the Young Justice Superboy.
That's true. Yeah.
Than I would say he is. Like in some of the other Elseworld stories where we've seen him have a darker turn or darker path.
Like when he landed on the dark side.
Like I'm not my first read through on this one, like when he burned the guy's weapon and stuff like that. That was an accident. I mean, we've seen Superman when he developed his powers for the first time. I think this is a kid who's never used his X-ray vision. I mean, this is the first time he used it, and he's freaked out by what he can do. And the fact that he could hurt somebody, doesn't know how it happened, why it happened, what that means. So what does he do? First thing he does is he runs from the situation because he's basically an innocent kid. No matter what age, you would say he is here, because obviously, with Cyborg being there and the age that he is, this is a Clark who is, he's at least an adult at this point. But he's been so sheltered from everything that, you shelter any adult throughout their entire life, they're going to have childlike attributes to them. And that's the way he reacts right there. Now, here's a question. Do you guys think that he might return?
I think so. Yeah, no, I don't think this is the last we're going to see him.
But, I mean, do you think he'll come back for these guys? Like, do you think his flying away is like he's gone? Because it says next Shazam, so I don't know if that necessarily means that, who's going to come and rescue them, what's going to happen. But
I'm kind of hoping he doesn't. I mean, just to be different.
Right, because Superman always saves the day.
Exactly, and in this world, he's not really Superman. He's Subject One.
Yeah.
See, I think the thing that makes Superman Superman is that he was raised by Ma and Pa Kent.
Sure.
And even if he didn't, if he had access to Jor-El, like the Smallville type, where like the crystals are talking to you, and you have to have morals and ethics on, whatever. I think he would turn out to be at least still a decent Superman. But being cooped up and stuff a lot like that, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't come back at all.
Yeah, it all depends on how he was raised. Was he exposed to books? I'm assuming he was incredibly isolated. So if he has no idea or any concept of stories involving heroes and villains and right and wrong and that type of thing, if he doesn't have those story concepts or anything to draw off of, he might. I'll agree with Brent that I don't think he should come back. Now, I would have no problem with him coming back if, there was an explanation, well, I read this book and I knew I should do this or that type of thing. I do think, though, that he shouldn't come back and be Superman. I agree with Brent that I want to see him be different. So even if he does come back, I wasn't implying that I want him to come back and be, dun-da-da, Superman and do all that. I want it to be awkward. I want it to be, it's got to be something where, very similar to what happened with the X-ray vision, it's all a happy accident. He just comes back because there was some part of him that was exposed to something that gave him a sense that he should come back. But if he doesn't, I honestly, I'm with Brent. I would be thrilled if he doesn't come back too, just because he's different. Cause,
if he does come back, I want to see him come back and like mess things up royally.
Sure,
just because he's inexperienced in them, just to be like, same thing with Booster. You know what? I think we're better off without you, pal.
Well, if he does come back, I think it's going to be because of Barry's words.
Yeah.
That when they went to free him. He tells him specifically, we're not here to hurt you, Superman. We're your friends, and we're going to get you out of here, okay? And this could very well be one of the first human beings that has treated him with at least a little bit of respect. And I think he might have actually, like, developed something from even just that small amount of contact with Barry. So he might come back, he might try to help, and it might go horribly wrong.
I do think this, I don't know that necessarily needs to go horribly wrong because we've only got 2 more issues, so I don't know how horribly wrong they can afford to let it go timeline-wise. But I will say this, in tone, right now Batman, Cyborg, and the Flash together are a band of misfits. I don't feel like these guys are the JLA, and I don't mean this as an insult. I actually think it's a compliment to the way the story is being put together. Barry is doing the best he can with what he's got access to. And he's pulling together people who I think can hold their own, and they're effective in their own way. But this does not feel like a team. This feels like this is my only choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a strength to this story, actually, and it builds off of what Brent's saying. So I do think if Superman does come back, whether he does or he doesn't, and I'd be happy either way because, like Brent, I would like it to be different in its tone and however it goes. I do think if he comes back, it's going to continue feeling that like this band of oddballs. This is not going to ever at any point in time, these guys are not going to feel like our JLA.
No.
We might see heroic glimpses in, Cyborg. I think Cyborg is probably going to be the closest out of all the Flashpoint-ish people that we're going to see to what he's going to look like in September, just because I think that's part of, the build of this character right now is to build him as a strong upper-tier character. But obviously Thomas Wayne isn't from our world. This is not our Superman. So, I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out because I actually like that they feel like a band of misfits and that, him flying away was not expected and, it's even if he comes back, it's not going to be as expected and that's part of the fun of this. I really do think it's something that's making this an enjoyable series. I really like the world.
Yeah. Well, and also I'm wondering whether or not this world has, at least somewhere, a John Jones. Because if there's going to be any alien that's going to be able to blend in, it's probably going to be Jean.
Yeah.
So is he going to wind up playing a factor in this at some point? Because, he's a member of Stormwatch come September, but is he going to play a factor in this? Because what Justice League is a Justice League without Martian Manhunter in it? I mean, yeah, sure, obviously the new Justice League isn't going to have Martian Manhunter in it, but it is somebody that we could wind up seeing, at least in one of the books at some point, maybe helping things out a little bit.
Or did the lack of a Justice League, though, affect his ultimate fate on this world, if he did come here?
Yeah, it's very possible because, there have been stories where, well, just like I said, though, if he did wind up on this Earth, he might just be blending in. He could be Joe Schmo anywhere on the street.
I think that's a best possible case scenario for him in this world.
Carpet on one of the Colonel's rugs, Yeah, no, this is like a band of people that just happen to not even like each other, but be in the same room and deciding that they're the last possible choice in stopping this world from destruction here. And I mean, when you have heroes, I say in quotes, like, Citizen Cold, and they're the good guys in this universe. I mean, how could you possibly succeed? So this is going to be interesting here for the last couple of issues here. What team winds up coming out of this, and just how they get any sort of semblance of order and wind up changing things for the better here is way up in the air.
Guys, is there anything else either of you want to say about Flashpoint or the event in general? Any hopes you have for the event or anything that you want to share?
I'm just kind of hoping for something different. I mean, we've already got the difference in tone, but if we see our favorite heroes show up, and that's great, that's exciting, and that's what we want to see. But I don't want to see them fall back into the same roles. You know what I mean? I want to see them fall into the roles that are proper for them here. So like I said, if Superman doesn't come back at all, awesome. I think that's wonderful because that's fits him in this role. If Barry isn't as fast and can't quite pull it off, and some other guy shows up and saves the day, I think that's interesting. I think that's what the most interesting part of this event is about, is seeing what roles have our heroes fallen into under these different circumstances. And I think they need to stick, it's probably already done by now, but they should stick to that rather than returning them to their previous roles and just let September and the new number ones do that.
Well, Barry, honestly, I would have major issue if Barry's role was changed in this, because Barry's supposed to be our eyes into this world because he is the comfort person. He's from our world. So I think he would be one that you should expect to be acting like our Flash. But I agree with you on everybody else, and I honestly think it's been a strength of this that it seems like that is in fact the case for everybody. Other than the fact, if you take a look at what's going on with characters like Hal Jordan is exactly who he would be if he wasn't a Green Lantern. Wonder Woman is, the circumstances horribly changed her. From the character that we know her to be. Aquaman, same thing. And I'm staying very general on this one because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who's reading these books. But reading all the tie-ins, there's nobody that I feel like is acting like our person and ignoring the circumstances that have changed around them. They're totally affected and changed by the way this world has put them in a different place. And I think that's the whole point of this. Because I think if you do what Brent's worried about, and you start making these characters into our characters, there's no motivation to change the world back.
Right.
You want them to be these characters that aren't our characters. Because that's the whole point of why would so many of them be motivated to change it back?
Well, and I think one of the things I'd like to see stick after this is all said and done, come September, come the new universe, not the new universe, that's Marvel, but the new DC universe come September, I want Captain Thunder to stick. Okay? Because DC's been trying really hard for a really long time to try and right the ship of Captain Marvel. And it just, nothing's really stuck. And they seem to go and change things again every other couple of years to try and make something new and unique. I think this is it. And they get rid of the problem of having a character named Captain Marvel but being unable to call him Captain Marvel on the cover. If you name him Captain Thunder and keep going with that. And I like the idea of all these kids. I mean, I know it's sort of a Firestorm type thing, but all these kids combining into one hero is kind of cool. And I think it's a concept that you'd actually really be able to sell as a book. Like, this could be its own title, and I would read it. So that is probably the one concept coming out of Flashpoint that I would love to see stick. I want Captain Thunder, maybe minus the scar, as a hero in the new DCU.
See, I don't know that necessarily, though. First of all, I like Captain Thunder, so I'm not going to dispute you in the sense that I'm not going to try to sort of say, I don't like Captain Thunder, I don't think the character's cool. I agree that he's cool, but I don't think he all of a sudden makes the Captain Marvel concept work. I think the Captain Marvel concept already works. They just have to find the right way to package it to get people to try it. Because did you read Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam?
I did. I did.
That series was tremendous. Power of Shazam. Yeah. I'll go back further. Jerry Ordway, which was the series.
Oh, no, I didn't read those. I thought you were talking about the Judd Winnick Trials of Shazam. I enjoyed that.
I did too. I liked that too. The Judd Winnick series I thought was great. But I'm going all the way back to the last one with Billy. Power of Shazam was the big series there. I thought that was tremendous, and it was a great concept. It's really to just push the idea that, and in fairness, the one thing that I think would draw people to Captain Thunder is the fact that he's a bit grittier than typical Shazam. I'm really worried that there is this thought that Captain Marvel as a character is all of a sudden cooler because he's grittier. It works in this world. I like the character, so I'm not disputing you on the cool factor of Captain Thunder. I don't necessarily know that I'd want to see the character drop, because then he's no longer Captain Marvel. Like, when you do that to the character, like, here it works in this world, but when you do that to the character in our world, you're basically saying that the Captain Marvel concept as a whole isn't interesting and cool. And what I like about Captain Marvel, what I liked about Billy Batson, that series, is the fact that the character he's your true hero. He's a little brighter. I love Batman. I love gritty characters. But I like that Captain Marvel's different. He's not that. And I think to turn him into that, to make him more marketable, you might as well just create a new character.
Well, I agree with you, Sean. I'm just kind of chuckling because, the same thing applies to September. When everything we know changes. I mean, some of it may change, some of it may not change. But, I mean, I think that's what they're doing is looking at these concepts and updating them for the modern world. Not to say that they're broken, but that they need to find a way to appeal to audiences of today's age.
Right, but I'm not even saying make Captain Thunder gritty. I'm saying use that basic concept and go forward with it, because you can still have a Captain Thunder that stays to the roots of Captain Marvel, but is Captain Thunder. And again, I'm also saying this because in general, it's kind of confusing to call a character Shazam on a cover and then have him be called Captain Marvel all the way throughout a title. So that's another thing for it. If you change the name to Captain Thunder and it sticks,
But that's like saying you can't call Detective Comics because a character named Batman's inside it. You can't call Action Comics because Superman's inside it. I mean, I think people real quickly catch on to the name of the character no matter what's on the cover. Journey in the Mystery featured Thor. I don't think people were confused about the name of the character because of that. So I don't know that necessarily works. And I'm going to disagree that that's what they're doing in September. I think that is going to happen in some cases in September, and I think that might end up being a problem in some cases in September if they make like drastic changes. But Blue Beetle come September, I'm pretty convinced that's going to be Jaime, the same Jaime that we had before.
Yeah. That's probably going to be the same.
Yeah, and I mean, if they go to change that character, like Mr. Terrific, if they lose at the core what's made Mr. Terrific cool in JSA, I'm going to have a real problem with that. I think they're going to package him as a solo character, which I have no issue with. I think he's going to be an interesting solo character. But to change him at his core, I think this is about, in September, at the core, getting who these characters are in a modern day fashion, updating them for today. I don't think it's going to all work across the board. We know it's not. I mean, you can't launch 52 titles and expect all of them to work. They're just not going to, and they know that. They've already got another wave of titles planned, I'm sure. I mean, we know that 52 titles is not what they're going to stick with anyway. They're going to release more titles as time goes on. This is way less than what they normally release. So, right. That's going to change. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be against, and I know what you're saying now, Ian. You're saying, what if instead of it just being Billy that makes this guy, what if it is a group of characters? Now you've got a whole group of characters you can follow. And I wouldn't have an issue with that if they did it. I think Captain Marvel, Captain Thunder, whatever you want to call him, you call him Fred if you want to, is a concept that I think will work. It's all about marketing him. I think a lot of these titles are going to run into that problem, though, if you keep marketing to the same comic fans.
I agree.
Because I think that's why they keep... Why do some of the smaller titles keep failing and not gaining the readership? I was glad to see newspaper articles for what's coming in September, because I think that's going to at least get some people to try things out in September that wouldn't normally, that aren't us. If it's just us that are picking up these titles in September, there's going to be a lot of books that are unfortunately going to have 12-issue runs, and then they're going to try something else.
Yeah.
And that's pretty normal of what we see in comics. That's not a DC thing. That's, across the board in comic companies, because sales numbers are going to dictate that they got to try another concept. Right. So I am hoping...
Sword at Marvel was a brand new concept, and it didn't even last 12 issues.
Sure. And that, the sad part for me is when we see quality titles like that, like a Blue Beetle, that they're great, they're exciting, they're fresh, they're fun, they're new, and they honestly have the potential to grab a new reader because they are different, and you can follow one book, and you can become just a fan of that title in this day and age. We were talking in your episode about budgets, and that people don't have the kind of money to maybe spend on a whole universe or something like that. Books like Blue Beetle are going to rely heavily on the fact that there's going to be some outside people, hopefully, that will try that title, maybe because they saw him on Smallville.
Yeah.
Or they saw him on the Brave and the Bold cartoon or something.
I hope Blue Beetle specifically works out, because I missed that title so much, and I'm glad to see it back.
Me too.
Yeah.
I want to reread it reread the old stuff before the new one.
He wants to talk about it on Raging Bullets. Just bring it up one more time.
We will. You heard him. He promised.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
No, you know what? It's a title. Actually, I share the enthusiasm. It's a title that he's a character that I think has worked not only in his title. He actually has done very well as far as staying pretty consistent.
Yeah.
In all of his appearances since. He was one of the characters that I really enjoyed, like the Felicia Henderson run of Titans. One of the characters I really liked seeing on the team was Blue Beetle. I think he worked. He's one of those characters that I think, then seeing him in Generation Lost, again, you had this sense of progression with the guy, but he still feels like the same fella. A lot of what we were talking about in the Kid Flash thing applies to what I like about Blue Beetle. He's survived pretty well since his initial appearance at keeping the qualities that have made him a character that's fun to follow. So a huge mistake if in September, and I can't imagine him not being. I think they know what makes the character interesting. It's just a matter of, I think he's a character that they know is cool for what his cool factor is, and I do feel that they've got faith that he's a character, if they get him to the right audience, would be popular. And I think they're not. I don't think he's a character we're going to see a whole lot done to, other than he's going to be reacting to the new universe. I think he's going to be the same guy.
And hey, maybe we'll finally find out who the Black Beetle is.
That would be something that I think
we did.
We did. Yeah,
Did
they know.
we?
Oh yeah. Wait, actually, yeah. Well,
It's him from the future.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, that's his
okay.
buddy.
Oh, wait, it's Paco?
No. I thought it was
No?
him from the future.
Black Beetle?
Yeah.
No, that's not
Well,
him.
that was in the booster backups, I thought.
No, that he was playing with his head. That was never the case.
You're just messing with him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's definitely not him.
Yeah, no, because I thought that he never confirmed that it was the buddy. I know what you're talking about, Sean, because it's coming back to me now. But he kept playing games with Jaime where we never knew for sure whether or not he was actually telling the truth or not. Whether it was the member of Beetle's gang that was trying to seek revenge
It's
or
Hector.
not. We don't really know.
I thought it was Hector.
Okay, huh?
Because it was
All right.
over. And I'm looking on Wikipedia on this one.
Yeah,
just
well,
because
maybe
I
it
don't
is.
have the,
Maybe it is.
I don't have the
maybe it
issues
is
in
that.
front of me.
Yeah.
But I think he, to mess with Jaime, was saying that he was his future self.
Yeah.
I thought it was clarified that he was Hector. Because of Nadia's death, that was the reason why he went and
I
did
think
this.
that's what we all speculated.
Yeah.
I don't think it was either confirmed either way.
Yeah, see, when Black Beetle finally confronts Jaime, he claims he is indeed Hector, blaming Jaime for Nadia's death, but instantly retracts the statement.
Right. Okay. So I don't know.
Yeah. So nothing about this has ever been confirmed.
Except to me, if they start going back to storylines like that,
I know.
You gotta unless you're going out of your way to establish the Black Beetle as a character beforehand and putting everybody in on the mystery, which they could do that. Wait, let me take that back. I'll actually take that back.
You could walk around a couple times and that's it.
You could quickly. No, I'm not saying Hector. I'm talking about Black Beetle. You could quickly establish Black Beetle as a character that we don't know the identity of in an arc of Blue Beetle, and then you put everybody new on board without having them have back continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if he's still going to call himself Black Beetle when he was read the last 6 issues I saw him.
Actually, maybe he'll call himself Ladybug because he's black and red.
I like that. And it's the girl from the future.
Yes.
That's funny.
Good times.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutrons!
Hey, Sean, this is Rick Robson from the Book K, Rick's Comics, and Future Full Color podcast, and I was listening to your latest podcast on Flashpoint, and you mentioned a character called Lady Godiva, and you thought she's like a new character. Well, she's been out for quite a while. In fact, she was in the Super Friends, and she's part of the Global Guardians. So she's had some history out there. And if you go and check out, say, like the Super Friends comic, you'll see an appearance of her with the elongated man. Just thought you want to know. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you for that, Rick. Yeah, that was starting to drive me nuts because I was trying to remember if I'd ever seen the character before, and I haven't. Maybe when I was younger, from what you're telling me, there's a good possibility, but I clearly forget who the character is. So this is something that I really love about podcasting, is the fact that we have this opportunity as friends to just say, hey, anybody seen this character before, and what's her history? And I've seen since on forums and all that she's part of the Global Guardians, but I didn't recognize the Super Friends reference either, so thanks a lot for that.
Hey, guys. This is Leslie Trigg from Mississippi. I was just listening to your podcast on Flashpoint. Here's some thoughts on the DNA from Project Superman. You were wondering where it probably could have come. Have you thought about the Daxamites? Monel crash land is on Earth when Superman was just a boy. If you go back and look at that, but Daxamites have the same powers as a Kryptonian. So something to think about. Later, guys. Been enjoying it. Bye.
I think my confusion there comes from the fact that we see Kal-El landing at the end of that issue. So I don't know where that power comes from. And it could be that, because like just Jim mentioned, what if this is somebody predating Kal-El as far as, what is driving the DNA. So I don't know. You might have a point there. It could be a Daxamite landing there before. Because, there's been, at times, storytelling that's established that Clark wasn't the first Kryptonian to check out Earth. So maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. I don't know. Or Daxamite, even in this case. So I don't know. That's as good a guess as any. It's one of the things I'm liking about the series is not that I want the answer right now. I like speculating about it, and I don't care if we're all horribly wrong afterwards. That's part of the fun is this, right now getting you. Was I thinking Daxamites? No, I wasn't thinking Daxamites. I think it's cool that you were, because that's as good a guess as any. So I don't know. That's cool. Thanks a lot.
Hey guys, it's Bobby C., also known as Star Wolf Oakley on the forums. I'd like to talk about 4 things, 2 of which are slightly connected to each other. One, it seems in the post-Flashpoint DC universe, Lois Lane and Clark Kent will not be married and never have been married. Part of me wants to sigh sadly and grumble about Dan DiDio being a fool, but if this does lead to maybe a new look at how Lois and Clark fall in love with each other, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not sure yet. Point 2, with the popularity of learning that over in England, certain newspapers owned by Rupert Murdoch have been hacking into the voicemail and phones of not just celebrities, but also regular people as well. It made me wonder, would Lois Lane or Clark Kent ever do that as investigative journalists? Part of being investigative journalism is investigating, and if you don't do that, you might as well just run the press releases. But I am wondering to what degree Lois and Clark would investigate something but still want to respect someone's privacy. And also for Clark, the question becomes deeper. In fact, he can use his X-ray vision and superhearing in a way that is in a way more an invasion of privacy than hacking a phone ever could be. Point 3, Barbara Gordon going back from being Oracle to being Batgirl. My curiosity about that is that Oracle isn't my favorite female character. In many ways, what she's good at is getting information to DC heroes, but it seems she doesn't want to do that anymore. And also, certain ways they've used the character, she's been so unpleasant in them or bad at them, I've been curious what the point is. Now, if Barbara Gordon has an attitude problem, her spine was blown out by the Joker, who wanted to prove some kind of point about mental illness in The Killing Joke. So that would give anybody a bad attitude. But some of her problems have included trying to be a mentor to younger female heroes, which in terms of Black Alice and Misfit and Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown just haven't worked out that well. And in terms of being a leader of a superhero team as the Birds of Prey, when Black Canary isn't around to help her with that, it never seemed to work out that well for her. When Black Canary left the Birds of Prey, it seemed their success rate went down with just Oracle in charge. And point number 4, and this is a slightly deeper point or more general point, this is regarding comic book fans and the popularity of Harry Potter. Specifically, with comic book fans, when we get villains, we like to have, no matter how despicable the villain may be, we enjoy the villain to have at least, if not noble motives that got corrupted, at least sort of a grand idea or a big plan that you can say, okay, this person has a good idea, but is going about it in horrible, horrible ways. And that's not true for every villain. The Joker is a popular villain, and his whole deal is basically doing horrible things and seeing how people react to them for his own amusement. And Lex Luthor's thing is he wants to kill Superman, but has the idea it will somehow benefit humanity if he does this. When it comes to Lord Voldemort and Harry Potter, it's just he wants to rule the wizarding world, enslave the Muggles, and live forever. And it's well, that's maybe simple, and though it starts out as a basic children's book, the one thing I was seeing throughout reading the Harry Potter books was Voldemort would somehow either have had good intentions at first that got corrupted, or sort of what he felt he was going towards making the wizarding world a better place, or something like that. And the fact that many villains at least think they're doing, if not the right thing, at least have goals that will lead to a better place. Even something like, the world's in such bad shape, I'm the only one who can rule it properly. You know, that's not exactly the best way, but at least it makes the villain interesting. Maybe the problem is, after reading comic books for so long, I never found Voldemort that interesting, or was expecting a big twist to his goals or his motives that J.K. Rowling never gave us. All right, those are my 4 points, and keep up the great work. Okay, bye.
You know, the Voldemort thing that you were talking about is interesting. See, sometimes I like villains who are just plain evil and selfish. It's all about, with Voldemort, it's all about his own selfish goals. It's not about making the world a better place. Now, I agree with you 100% about your comparisons to villains who are more interesting and have interesting motivations where, yes, they're villains, but they do have, like, this good, or at least, you know, in their mind, it's a good motivating factor for what they're doing. They think, you know, they're just misguided in how they're using it. And I find those characters interesting too, so I'm not disputing any of that. But I like Voldemort. I like Voldemort just because of the fact that he is just this straight up evil villain. And you know, sometimes it's great to have a villain who is selfish, because I mean, there are people who are selfish, and sometimes those people are selfish without a, you know, caveat that, hey, they're selfish, but they're doing it for good purposes. So I don't know. I kind of like that side of him. So it's just kind of my own 2 cents worth. But you're right. Those villains that aren't like that are incredibly interesting, and they're fun to read about. The Superman thing. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same place you are. We're pretty in sync. Yeah, I read that on the Source blog, and thank you for calling in on it too, because I probably wouldn't have mentioned it on this episode had you not. And I do think it's something that's timely to discuss. For me, I was always worried that they were going to end the marriage somehow, versus going and predating it. There's a huge distinction for me on that one. I like the marriage. I'm not happy that in September they're no longer going to be married. If this winds up being a build to really for a new generation of fans, showing why these two should be together, and then putting them together and showing how a marriage can work in comics, and just really, you know, building a strong Superman foundation at its core and all that, I don't have a problem with that. You know, I'm. Yeah, and I'll take it one step further. If it's well written, I can get super excited for that. So I don't know. I'm with you. We're kind of in that same place where, you know, it's a lot of wait and see in September. This could be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm very uncomfortable with Superman's costume right now, this suit of armor thing. I think storytelling purpose-wise, they might sell me on it. I really like the classic Superman costume. You know, it's I have like tweaks to it. You know, I like, great example is Man of Steel when Myrn released that in '96. There were tweaks to the costume. I don't have any problems and issues with, you know, tweaking the costume and doing all that. I don't know. You know, it's, and again, storytelling a lot of times can turn me around. So I might be singing a different tune by, like, you know, October, November, after I get a chance to really give these creators an opportunity to sell me on this. And that's just it. A few still images and a few announcements is not going to sell me on a title. I've really got to see what it's like in practice. But thank you for calling in on that particular part. Oracle, we're going to have to agree to disagree on Oracle. But there are a couple things I want to kind of correct there. When you talked about how she was stepping away from helping the heroes, that's not what it was. She was realizing that at this point in time in Birds of Prey, that she, and with accessibility of things like, you know, the way Google works and Facebook and everything now, she was now on the radar of so many villains that knew about Oracle. She was putting herself in danger. She was no longer being effective. She was not just herself in danger, her entire team, those family members close to her. People were specifically targeted based on their relationships to Oracle. So, you know, this is an opportunity for her to go underground and to use the internet in a way where she's more viral, and to be more of a, turn Birds of Prey into a strike force. Now, I don't know how much of this is going to be around post, you know, the relaunch. I don't know how that's going to work, but I thought that was very interesting use for her. I don't agree with you. I agree that you're right. There's times where she's more withdrawn and introspective because of things that have happened to her, but I don't think that's the whole story with her. There have been some wonderful, warm moments, especially in this run of Birds of Prey. You know, go back and read the first arc of this Birds of Prey, when you see these three coming back together, I'm talking about specifically Huntress, and, oh, no, that shouldn't be three, all four of them. If you count Lady Blackhawk, Huntress, Black Canary, and Oracle, when they come back together, some of the moments that they have are very upbeat and very uplifting and show a side of her that's very family-oriented. And, you know, I mean, she's not a one-trick pony, so I think you're simplifying her, and I encourage you to read some more of her if you're not. Actually, I'd love to know what you're reading. Feel free to email me or call in again with how much Oracle have you read? Because, you know, to me, a lot of this stuff it's not that simple with her. I'm curious, though, are you interested in her as Batgirl then, because you haven't been that big of a fan of her as Oracle? Are you interested in her going back? Because I do think that there's an audience of people who maybe might come back to the character because of her being Batgirl. That change in status quo might be something that they're interested and excited in. So are you one of those people because of your comments? I'm curious, because we don't all have to agree on what characters we like and which we don't. So maybe you don't like Oracle. I love the character. It doesn't make one of us right or wrong. It's just a matter of opinion. So I don't know. I'm interested in that one. I do want to talk about your comments on the whole, you know, wiretapping and phone tapping and what can you do, and especially with using Superman's powers and the ethics. That's something that I love seeing explored. I actually want to see that kind of thing explored in the comics. To me, I think Lois and Clark might come to not to blows in that, but that might be an issue where one might feel one way and the other might feel another as far as, you know, the legitimacy of using that information. And I don't know that it's so cut and dry which one of the two would feel that way, because maybe Clark would be more sympathetic with his X-ray vision and super hearing, or it could, you know, go on the opposite tree. See, that's one of the things I like about Lois knowing who Clark is, that he's Superman. I like the fact that she knows that, because she can have that discussion and say, but you have, you know, if she's for it, for example, she can come back at him and say, hey, but you have X-ray vision and all that, so how is that any different? And I find that interesting. So you're touching on something that I think is a great example of where her knowing eventually, again, about his powers could lead to that kind of discussion and storytelling. But I don't know. I don't know ethically how they would feel about that. I think that's a story I'd love to read, to see that, just for the purpose of that. So, Bobby, as always, thanks for calling the show. If you want to call our show voicemail line, it's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. And I want to thank Bobby and Rick and Leslie for calling this week, because especially, you know, it's great to be able to talk about some of these things on the show, and I'm always glad when listeners have the opportunity to follow up. So thank you very much for participating, guys.
Now I can get out of here.
Guys, you want to talk quickly about Batman and Robin? I know you guys both threw that out as a book that you're enjoying, issue number 24 in particular. This whole Red Hood storyline, where we've got, in many ways, we've got Jason Todd back with the two other sons. I gotta say, Jason Todd's one of those characters that I don't want to say I run hot and cold on, because I typically like him when he makes appearances, but I really enjoy him when Winnick writes him. I think when Winnick was writing Batman and he did the whole Under the Red Hood thing, he kind of established himself as understanding what makes Jason Todd interesting to people if he's going to be back. Yeah. And no matter who's touched the character afterwards, I don't think they've had the same impact with him and same generate. It's kind of like Hush. I think he's got the same problem Hush has. Like, there's appearances of Hush that I find to be phenomenal. There's appearances of Hush where I'm just kind of like, okay, it's Hush is back. I'm not disappointed in it, but I'm not through the roof and excited about it either, where, you know, I think this is a character, when Jason Todd appears, you should feel like that's a cool thing. This story reestablishes that, I think. I think it's the way he carries himself, the dialogue. This has been a book, though, I've got to say, since this whole Bruce Wayne coming back thing, we've had different creative teams working on Batman and Robin, but it's been really consistent through. I like how they've had small arcs, and they've been great stories focusing on the relationship between Damian and Dick Grayson, and that to me has been the key of Batman and Robin since its launch, has been the focus on Damian and Dick Grayson. But what do you guys think? Are you guys liking that relationship? What's drawing you to books like Batman and Robin?
Well, I'm really liking it. I mean, starting with Grant Morrison, I've enjoyed this book, and I was a little hesitant when I saw that he was leaving, but then when I saw, initially it was going to be Peter Tomasi right away, but then Paul Cornell filled in for those 3 issues, and Paul Cornell created one of the few villains that, when looking at her, I recoil. Where, like, I actually have to look away, because the idea of a villain that has a clear hole through her head is just really freaky. And it totally screamed Doctor Who villain to me too. So that's why, like, when I saw it was Paul Cornell writing it, I'm like, okay, this makes a little bit of sense. But that was a great arc. I enjoyed that a lot. And then when Tomasi came on and did his 3 issues, that was 3 issues. Yeah, it was 3 issues where there was this villain tracking down all the family members of Arkham inmates. That was a really cool arc and it really hit home for me. And now here we are with Judd Winnick bringing back a character that I agree with you, Sean, that I feel has been misused at times, and the voice hasn't been quite right when it's been used in other places. And I mean, now he's a redhead thanks to Grant Morrison, but I can get over that a little bit. But here it actually kind of feels like it's a bit of a sequel to Under the Red Hood.
Yeah.
That this is just picking up right where Judd Winnick left off, with the Red Hood as literally the redheaded stepchild of the Batman universe now, and what happens next, and the interaction that he has with both Dick and Damian in this. I mean, Damian wants absolutely nothing to do with him, and Dick is a little bit more sympathetic because he's had the experience with Jason in the past, and they're forced to work together in this arc is really fun. And when your villains look like they came out of, like, the Land Before Time, that's going to make me happy. And that's what's going on in this book too. So overall, I've been very, very satisfied with the past couple of issues of Batman and Robin, and 24 is no exception.
What about you, Brent?
I don't know about this little arc here. I like Jason Todd. He's one of my favorite newer characters, but honestly, he's not. This storyline isn't really getting me excited. I don't know why. I did just start reading the Lost Days trade. I just got that from DCBS, so I only read the first issue so far. So that to me is more interesting. I think where I kind of jumped the ship was where Grant Morrison took him, and it wasn't the character he was created to be. He almost went a little too off the rails. So I'm kind of excited for September when he gets. I'm hoping he gets back to his normal motorcycle fiend self. Not the insane, crazy psycho superhero or whatever he was.
See, I've read, for anybody listening, I've read issue 25, the issue after this, which closes off the arc. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be biting my tongue a lot during this segment because I don't want to ruin that for either of you. Other than to say, one of the things I do feel that they're doing here with this storyline, and I've felt it since the first issue and it continued into the second issue, was about taking where the Red Hood's gone and kind of getting him back to where... And I don't know if this is something that they did intentionally or if it's something Winnick was doing or if maybe I just feel it myself because Winnick's writing him. But it felt like it was bringing him back to where I think he should be.
Yes.
Because I do think this character is somebody who has the potential to be a cool and interesting character. I've read lots of stories where he is. And I've read, like I said, other appearances of him. Even though I was interested in those appearances and I thought they were okay, they didn't have the same bang as he's had in other appearances. The storyline that Brent you're referencing, that's the one where we're dealing with the years after that, like are in between Under the Red Hood's backstory of him and present day. Is that the miniseries?
It's after he got resurrected and returns to Gotham.
Right.
So everything that happened after Batman Annual 25, where we saw like how he came back to life,
right,
and then how he got his Red Hood. Basically,
it's a very good miniseries.
It sounds a lot like Ben Reilly, the Lost Years, or whatever it was, when we found out exactly what happened to Ben Reilly before he came back into Spider-Man's life. Is that at all comparable to what that's like? Because it sounds like it's a gap filler.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and it focuses a lot on, without spoiling anything, it focuses a lot naturally as it would on Talia, Ra's al Ghul, and in those relationships with him.
Okay.
And I'm a huge fan of both of those characters when they're done right. And this story arc did a really nice job of doing that. And as you would expect, the natural characters that you would expect to appear in a story where Jason Todd's filling in the years in between that appearance would appear, all from Jason's perspective. It's a good story. This one it was interesting because this book. It's funny. I'm not usually a big fan of. I like runs, long runs with the same creative team, so you get a chance to see them do this build. And this has been a book that survived very well on having multiple creative teams working on it. Like I've still felt progression in this book, which is very hard to do.
And the voice has been the same too. Like I haven't felt like there's been like a major jump in the way the characters feel or even the way they look too much throughout the series. Even when there's been artist changes, it still felt like the same people. And even when there's been writing changes, the voice of Dick and Damien has felt very true.
And Jason Todd in this one, like he's been captured, right? And they're trying to bring him to their boss. They're really using like any means necessary to get him and bring him in alive. And that's the key. They're trying to bring him in alive. Well, he's clearly doesn't like being controlled by anybody. That's been kind of his MO all along. I love these action sequences with him because I love Grant Morrison and I really enjoyed his entire run on Batman and Robin. I don't want to say I didn't like his Jason Todd, but I felt like he was a little off of what I like about Jason Todd. Like it wasn't a bad story. I enjoyed it. I liked the whole Red Hood and Scarlet thing. I thought that was interesting. So it wasn't like I totally disliked it, but it was something that I think was going on, since Bruce's death with, again with Jason Todd with his appearances. He sometimes you got to be careful how whiny you make Jason Todd. I do want to at some point in time feel like these action sequences that I see and hear when Winnick's writing him. He's got to look confident. He's got to look like a mercenary. He's got to look like, he has these abilities to really handle himself in situations. There's got to be a confidence to him and a cockiness about him that works, and those are elements that you lose if you make him too whiny. And that confidence in this is something that I as the Winnick arc has progressed, I've seen more and more of that from Jason and more of what I expect from Jason. And in his cool sequences, whatever hair color you give him. Like, I kept expecting partway through this, especially as we go from issue 2, when he's got these sequences, his hair to change colors like Samson or something.
Well, with the helmet on, you don't know if he suddenly went and dyed his hair and then put the helmet on.
Because I did feel like when his hair changed back to red, I'm like, we lost some of what I like about Jason there. And I like the story. I did like the Red Hood and Scarlet story, so I'm not saying I didn't like the story. I do think a lot more of my interest in the story was my focus on Scarlet because I thought her relationship with Jason was interesting. I loved seeing, as always, Dick and Damien, which Grant Morrison just nailed through the roof. Those two characters. So that's why I'm not saying it wasn't a bad story. I wasn't particularly through the roof on Jason Todd's handling in that. Whereas I thought this story was a lot more to my palate with that character. I do think that the character here he's got that cocky confidence about him, which, just starts to play off more as this issue goes on. And it's something that I was glad to see back as it goes on. I'll be curious to see, Brent, you're talking about how this one wasn't grabbing you as much. I'll be curious to see what you think when the arc finishes with issue 25 when you see that, to see if it did, because I felt the evolution continued as it went along, and I'm going to leave it at that, to see what you think about where he went with him in the end.
Well, one of the things that bothers me in stuff like this is, it's really a nitpick, but I'm not feeling Greg Ticini's art at all. I liked him back on the Ion series, but what he's doing here, I'm just not digging. And especially when it jumbles up in half the issue and it changes to a different artist. And we're on the second issue, and the first issue was beautifully done by Gilliam March, who I've loved on any Batman stuff he did. When he did the Trial of Gotham or whatever in the crossover a couple months ago, I love that. But just to me, I think that's really what's breaking it up is the art changes from issue to issue, and even in one issue, it's just off-putting as a reader from month to month.
Yeah. And the second artist isn't even credited in the second issue, is he? Because, or is this Greg Ticini all the way through? Because it looks like the art style changes halfway through. So, because I'm looking at the credits for this issue 24, and only Greg Ticini is listed as artist, but I could have sworn the art changed halfway through the book.
Yeah, it was Greg Ticini was credited as the artwork, so I don't know what art shift you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's the next one. I don't know.
Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way the inker's inking it or something. But it feels like Like, even Jason's face fluctuates a little bit in this issue. Now, I mean, I still like the art. It's just, it did, like, I swore when I was reading it that there were two different artists on this book.
Well, there was an art shift from the first page. If you look at the first page, which takes place in the past, and you're dealing with a different Batman and Bruce and Jason, I thought that was done on purpose. You know, and then but there is 100% a drastic shift from the artwork on the first page then to the art on the second page as it goes on through. But I thought that was done intentionally because of the different time periods. Maybe that was just me. Maybe I was just, you know, accrediting to that.
No, you might be right about that. It's just I feel like the last couple of pages of the book have the same art style as the first page. So that's kind of what threw me a little bit. But if it is all the same artist, then hey, he can use different styles, so more power to him. What I do really like is the new Red Hood outfit. That I feel works a lot better than the one he had during the Morrison arc.
Oh, I didn't like the big tube on the top of his head. No.
Neither did I. It looked like you could plug him in.
I really liked his, biker helmet, jacket style look. It made him seem, it gave him this distance from being one of the Bat family, and made him separate. It made him seem more like a mercenary, which was the route he kind of headed into after selling weapons and things like that, and making those kind of shady deals to further his own plans for places like Gotham to do it better. His quote, do it better idea. He didn't have the resources of Bruce, so he had to make his own resources, and I quite liked that. And
all the way through this and the previous issue, I mean, and part of this is probably because Judd Winnick wrote it, I could hear Jensen Ackles reading the lines that Red Hood was speaking, like, the entire time.
Seriously?
And so it worked. It worked in that aspect for me, that this felt like the Red Hood that I knew from the original Judd Winnick story and from Batman Under the Red Hood, the movie. So that to me worked really, really well.
I was glad when Dick and Damian finally arrived.
Yes.
Because to me the whole point of you're going to bring Jason Todd in is, unless you've got interaction and heavy dialogue interaction between these two with this guy, you're missing a major opportunity here.
Oh, look, it's Batman and Robin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and especially Dick, because of the experience that he has with Jason over the years through all of his different iterations. Having both Dick and Damian involved in this, like you said, the reuniting of the sons works incredibly well in the story in general, and the banter is brilliant.
But I love the manipulative aspects of him, because he's like, okay, this wasn't entirely unexpected. I knew they'd show up, but I didn't expect us to be fighting on the same side. I do like me some irony, because there's a manipulative game aspect to him where he's an opportunist. He loves the irony aspect of that's great because of the fact that he knows he's basically a villain for them. He's been a foil for them. And that's something where, knowing that relationship, he appreciates that this is going to be something they're not going to like at all. And he finds that humorous. I like that aspect of him. That's where the cool factor kind of comes in. Nothing whiny about that whole dialogue sequence, which with some writers, they start turning that into a whiny thing. And that's not what I like about Jason Todd since he's come back.
Yeah, no, I like him much better when he has a sixth sense of humor than he does when he's whining.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Sixth sense of humor. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, because he finds things funny that no normal human being that's at least slightly sane would. But to him, this is all fun and games almost. That now that he's out of jail, it's like, yay, I'm having fun again, killing people and siding with the good guys and forcing them to work with me, because that's just hilarious.
Now, I do like when he analyzes them and finds what he thinks they're doing wrong, his perception of what they're doing wrong. So the internal dialogue from him, like when the whole gas thing, gets, or the, what was it, the sticky grenade or adhesive grenade or whatever that thing was that he threw out, expecting that he would get it first, but, giving him enough time. But the whole concept of they're always afraid to do what's needed to be done to stop real situations. That's because his analysis when he came back is he died because Batman didn't do what was necessary. That's always been what the pivotal point was with him. But then, since then, that pivotal event made him analyze not only Batman's career before Jason was there, but Batman's career since. And through his analysis, he determined that Batman fails. His ultimate failure has been that he has a limit. He has a line that he won't cross, and he fails when he doesn't cross that line when it's necessary. I like when he analyzes Dick Grayson and, starts to, look at the positive qualities of the guy, but then also takes a look at him and says, hey, you could do all these things. You could be this. And instead, you chose to follow your mentor's path, and you're limited to be this. That is something that I thought was a theme in this mini, or arc, whatever you want to call it, of the series that I thought was really a key to me, because that's when this gets interesting. When you see the sons all together, is Jason's analysis of them without the whininess. It doesn't, who wants to read all the whininess all the time from this? Because I don't think that's not what the character's all about.
Yeah, he's also a lot better when his hair isn't falling out due to dye.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it is funny how he's got like this tremendous head of hair now.
He obviously went to Cyborg's clinic.
Cyborg I think is going to go to his clinic.
just for men.
Yeah.
Jason Todd, just for men. I mean, again, overall, I'm enjoying it. I mean, Brent, hopefully you'll like it more once the arc ends. But for me, this is just fun. I'm liking it a lot.
Fun's a good word for it.
I guess we'll find out.
Are you guys reading? I know we've discussed this on Comic Timing before, but just for establishment of for our listeners here, are you guys reading? How many of the Bat books are you reading, and what makes you make a decision on which Bat book you're reading? And Brent, why don't we go with you first? What Bat books are you reading, and what made those choices for you?
Of the ones currently being published, I'm not reading Birds of Prey and Batgirl.
Because he has no interest in female bats.
Or Detective Comics.
Ooh.
And that one, I think I'm going to pick up and trade, because I figured that was a mistake. But, I mean...
I would argue all three are mistakes, but...
Never really had an interest in Batgirl. I've never really understood or had an interest in Birds of Prey, regardless of, it's nothing against Gail Simone. It just
I've tried, Sean. Trust me, I've tried.
Oh, I know.
No, I read her Wonder Woman stuff, and I thought it was the best Wonder Woman stuff I've ever read. But I didn't really have an interest in Secret Six past the Infinite Crisis setup stuff, so didn't read that. So nothing against her there or Birds of Prey. Just, I don't have a lot of interest in female-oriented books. Not to say they're oriented towards females, it's just in those characters I have a complete lack of interest in, I guess.
Well, go ahead with which books you're reading. And I will say one thing before you go into that, though. Going on your love for the regular Batman titles featuring a Batman in them, Detective Comics, to me, is one of the most cutting-edge Batman books I have read in a long, long time. So out of your list of books for getting in trade and reading in that, I think that story will read tremendous in trade. Do not miss it.
I don't plan on missing it. I'm going to get that. So yeah, I'm reading Batman Inc., Batman and Robin, Batman, what's the other one? Red Robin. Am I missing anything?
Dark Knight, which we talked about on your show.
Dark Knight, which the third issue supposedly came out this week. I'm not sure.
It did. I saw it at Forbidden Planet. I didn't. I like I said when we were going over it, I didn't pick it up.
Touching on that, if you have watched Bleeding Cool, I think it was today or yesterday, Paul Jenkins is actually writing or co-writing, I guess, with Dave Finch, the relaunch Batman Dark Knight. And he gave an interview with Rich Johnston on Bleeding Cool that, Dave Finch did get caught up in writing and drawing and stuff on this original miniseries, but at least from the new number 1 that's coming out in September, it's going to be a totally new story. Dave Finch, I guess, came up with the idea, but he's handing over the scripting, I guess, details to Paul Jenkins so he can focus on drawing it. So, which I like that idea, because frankly, I'd rather see Dave Finch's art and have him prove that he can be a monthly artist like Tony Daniel did before he takes on writing and drawing.
Yeah. Depends on which Paul Jenkins we get on writing, though, but we'll see.
Depends. I guess we'll find out.
I'm glad Scarlet came.
I think that's it.
I'm glad. I was looking over the issue, and one thing we didn't really talk about is I was glad to see Scarlet back in this arc. To see her appearance again, because I do like the idea of having him having a twisted sidekick.
Well, it makes sense for the twisted man to have a twisted sidekick.
So you're basically, Brent, aside from Detective, you're reading all of the Batman. I'm talking about when I say the Batman titles, I'm talking about the Batman titles featuring a Batman in them.
Yeah,
Detective's the only one you're skipping.
I really plan to do that come September. Now, I placed my DCBS order, and I did opt in for the 50% off trial 52 new titles. I figured, you know what, I'm either going to end up picking and choosing now, and then on the day of, I'll look on my phone and then read something digitally. Why not just hold off and get them at least get them all half off the way they have it, and save some money? Because I did a little bit of math, and I was like, I'd probably spend up more money if I get some digitally and stuff like that. So, get the ones that I'm not picking up in physical issues. So we'll see what those are like. I'm giving everything an open shot, but I'm predicting out of the Bat titles, I'll stay away from Batgirl, Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad, or whatever else is not Batman related. But I'll get Nightwing and all the other Batman titles probably.
Yeah. Right now, Bat title wise, actually, I'm not picking up Batman or Detective. I'm gonna have to pick up Detective in trade. Yes, I know it's amazing. I'm looking forward to it. I just opted out and are now suffering for that. But oh well. I am picking up Red Robin, Batgirl, Birds of Prey, Batman Inc., Batman and Robin, and I think that's it. Oh yeah, because I mentioned Batgirl. So yeah, that's it as of now. So all but the two main Batman titles and Batman: The Dark Knight, everything else I'm picking up, and they've all been really, really good. I'm about 3 or 4 months behind on Batgirl, so I got to catch up on that. But I'm current on Red Robin as of last month, I believe. So I haven't read the issue with the fight between him and the artist formerly known as Batgirl. And I think everything else I'm pretty much caught up on. And I think of all of them, Batman Inc. is probably my favorite, followed closely by Red Robin and then Batgirl.
Batman Inc.'s a really fun adventure story with Bruce, and it's good to see that that the Grant recognizes that Bruce can be this dark, mysterious character from the shadows and all that, but he's more than that, and there are aspects of him that you can character traits of him that you can bring out in storyline like that without losing that. Like he doesn't feel like a different Batman at all. It's just that the adventures lead him to be a little bit more out in the open, a little bit more, teaming up and crime fighting and getting to know these characters one-on-one because he has to. And I do like the fact that they aren't afraid to use him as Bruce Wayne in that book either. It's great to see him have those moments in it as well. So Batman Inc.'s, I think, been a tremendous book.
Yeah. Brent, you're hulking out into the mic right now, just so you know.
Sean, are you reading Gates of Gotham?
Oh, I love Gates of Gotham. Yeah, we just did it a couple episodes.
First issues of those, and I thought it was very good.
Yeah, Scott Snyder. It's the same writer who's doing Detective Comics right now.
Oh, okay. Well, what is Gates of Gotham anyway? I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't actually picked it up or anything.
It's a story that takes place in both current timelines and in the past. And it establishes like a history of Gotham. See, I don't want to. There's only so much I want to say because I don't want to actually say what the gates are.
Oh yeah.
It establishes in the past. It establishes the families of the Wayne family, the Elliott family, and the Cobblepots, and how they were these influential families to Gotham's history to the point that they had these bridges named after them, buildings named after them. They really shaped. And this is going back not the dad of Bruce Wayne. This is going back further than that. It's really establishing that the Waynes have had a rich history in Gotham. Like it shows why the Waynes on the W's on the Wayne building. This is all stuff from the first issue, very early on. So I'm not like spoiling the series for anybody. That's the opening of the series, is really kind of establishing that. And then in the modern day, somebody's targeting the families.
Oh, okay. That's
So,
cool.
and I'll leave it at that because I don't want to. If I keep going, it's gonna take away. But this is like I basically gave you like what you would get on Newsarama in those 4-page previews.
I wonder how much all of this is going to play into that Penguin title that was just announced.
It all depends on where that goes. Because I do think that everything that's being done with Scott Snyder right now is going to be in continuity. Obviously, with Scott Snyder, it's going to be on Batman when this is done. And so basically the detective and Batman writers are staying the same.
Yeah.
And Kyle Higgins is co-writing that, and he's writing Nightwing after this.
Right. And Kyle Higgins is doing the dialogue on Gates of Gotham, actually.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, and I am totally looking forward to Nightwing. Just because I like the costume, and I've always liked Nightwing, so Dick becoming Nightwing again isn't really that bad for me as long as he's still a strong character. And if from what you guys are saying is true, then Kyle Higgins knows how to write the character, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, and Dick Grayson has a prominent role. This isn't spoiling anything in Gates of Gotham. It's
cool.
It's a Batman's. It's focused. It's in Gotham, so it's still set in current continuity where Dick is Batman. So it's a Dick Grayson story. You get a great chance in that to see how he writes Dick Grayson. And it's great to have him with Scott Snyder, who's been writing him too. This Scott Snyder, I'm loving everything he's doing. So American Vampire is absolutely tremendous. I mean, I'm into his Swamp Thing, I think, when that's going to be hitting, because Scott Snyder's writing it. It's one of those things where a writer's really getting me excited for something that I didn't expect to be through the roof on, and I am because of the writer.
And speaking of writers and specifically Dick Grayson, just going back to Batman and Robin real quick.
Sure.
It was so great, even for just 3 issues, having Peter Tomasi write Dick again, because that is by far my favorite Nightwing arc, probably of all time, is Peter Tomasi's Nightwing arc.
Yeah, the fall. Yeah, mine too.
Oh yeah, and he gets the voice of Dick Grayson down perfectly. And he just picked up where he left off on Batman and Robin. So that was great, just even for the short amount of time that he was writing the book.
Well, and what I liked about Tomasi's run when he wrote Nightwing was that he didn't ignore anything that was in the past. Like, it was Dick's past history, and right down to his relationship with Bruce. He evolved it, he moved it forward, but it was all coming from the standpoint of, and I'm a big fan of writers that they don't try to throw stuff under the carpet and pretend that they didn't happen. Instead, they find clever ways to use those things to move a character forward, and he did that in that arc. I really felt like, because I read all of Nightwing since it started from its miniseries straight on through the entire solo series, and I really felt that was something that totally felt like it was in everything that happened in all those issues before. Not that he referenced every little tiny detail, you don't need to do that, but the character felt like he'd been through all that.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was having fun too.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about a whiny Jason Todd. I hate a brooding Dick Grayson, because I've gotten that a few times, and it just doesn't work for the character at all. And it felt like he just completely got away with that with his Nightwing stuff. So that just made me very, very happy.
Well, and see, you can do a character being upset about something that's happened, where you have issues, where there's a difference between that and brooding. Brooding is something where it's gone on way too long.
Yeah.
And, it's you really change the character at his core. Dick Grayson's not a character who's a brooding character. When you do that, it's oof.
Yeah, Devin Grayson's run felt like that for a while for me. Near the end of her run, when he was running around with Tarantula, I felt like I was reading a brooding Dick Grayson for half of it, and a little bit of the Bloodhaven stuff too felt a little too woe is me. But he's gotten out of that since then.
I kind of wanted to see if Devin Grayson had stuck around, because there's a lot to like in Devin Grayson's time. There's a lot of it that I really enjoyed. I wonder if Devin Grayson would have kept it that way. Like if there'd been like another year on it, for example. I would have been curious to see, because I really felt that there was a real understanding of the character of Dick Grayson. And I'm not disputing anything you're saying. I thought Dick got a little too dark during the whole Tarantula arc as well. Because the big problem with Dick Grayson is you should never be in a position where Dick's become unlikable. Dick became unlikable during that arc.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely. Well, we'll see. Maybe someday she'll get a chance again.
Because I do feel that she wrote good Nightwing. I really do. I just think that arc was one where I kept feeling like there was supposed to be a payoff.
And there never was.
Yeah, because I really felt like that was something where I can't imagine her wanting to keep him that way just because of what she'd done with him before. If that had been an isolated arc and that was the only time I saw Devin Grayson on Nightwing, I wouldn't be defending that. But there was so much that I really liked that Devin Grayson did that arc I would have loved to have seen, like maybe her have a chance to just have another year maybe to have paid off whatever, because I felt like there was a pay. I don't know, maybe that's an illusion for me, although you seem to be in a similar state. I felt like I felt like that story never got paid off and it needed to.
Well, because, if memory serves, she got taken off the book. It wasn't by choice. No. So she was definitely building to something. It's just she never had the time to.
And I would have liked to have seen what the payoff was.
Yeah. Yep. But, all's well, and we get a new Nightwing #1 in September. So, yippee-ki-yay.
Funny, seeing as we just talked about Jason Todd guys in this arc, Jason Todd's getting his own, well, not getting his own book, he's getting a team book. It's Jason Todd, Arsenal, and Starfire. Is Jason Todd a character that you are interested in following in a monthly adventure? Brent?
I'm definitely looking forward to that one out of, some of the other titles, definitely. So I would say yes.
Hey, Brent, how many arms does Arsenal have?
2.
Yay!
Or maybe it's just a flesh-colored sleeve.
No, goddammit, no!
It's one of those like fake tattoo sleeves that he just puts over his gold arm, and it tricks the artist, and that way the artist draws it as a real arm and not a mechanical one.
Oh God!
It's like a Terminator skin type thing.
I severely hope not.
That's what I never could figure out. Like, you're getting a mechanical arm. Why do you need it to have all the muscles and stuff? You really just need the bones, but I guess that would look weird.
Because that's more dark and brooding.
It's out there. Whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna read it too because I like Arsenal. I'd like for Starfire to maybe get a little bit more clothing. That would be nice because she's like one nip slip away from being banned from Academy Awards shows. But yeah, the rest of it looks fun though, so I'll pick it up. But Scott Lobdell, like I said before, when we were talking about Teen Titans, I'm a fan of his work, so I'm looking forward to this, and this looks like it could be fun. I'm also wondering what color Jason Todd's hair will be come the end of this Jason Todd and the Outlaws.
Did I see a bat symbol?
No relation whatsoever to the Outsiders, I swear.
On Jason Todd's outfit, did I see a bat symbol on the chest?
You did.
It's a red bat symbol.
So, yeah. Woof. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Ian. When you were talking about the red hair, when you were talking about the red hair, I'm like, woof. Because I totally agree. Like, this is red. I honestly think we're probably stuck with the red hair. But the bat symbol thing really threw me. I was like, whoa, what? Now is that going to? I don't know if that necessarily means that he is sanctioned by Bruce either. I could see him doing that as his own irony,
just to piss him off. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it also begs the question: just how much is changing in this DC relaunch?
Sure.
I mean, is he just going to be the son that doesn't get along with everybody else, or is he going to continue to be an outlaw like the title says? I mean, I don't know, because Arsenal has never really been on the wrong side of the wall too much, and Starfire. I mean, Starfire is she's always been. Well, she's Coriander. She's been mostly a very positive character over the years that's usually happy-go-lucky, and yet they're all in a book called The Outlaws. So this is, are there going to be character changes, or is that just the name of the book?
I don't know. That has me interested.
Definitely, yeah, and like I said, 2 arms, Arsenal. Yeah, good idea. You keep with that, okay? You don't cut his arm off again. Bad idea from the start.
I like that I don't know. See, I some of this I find refreshing. I know there's, I don't mind the discomfort because, I mean, there's a lot of titles that I'm worried. First of all, I'm more uncomfortable with titles that aren't around that I'm enjoying. Right. Like Secret Six, for example, was mentioned before. I'm loving Secret Six, so the fact that I'm not going to have Secret Six come September is something that bothers me because I like that book. But, I mean, I'm used to titles being canceled. That's such as life. But the real thing that, like, there's a lot of titles I'm uncomfortable about because I don't know what the character status quo is going to be. And I'm like Teen Titans is a great example of that, just because I'm not sure yet what that's going to be. But I like that I'm not sure because they haven't revealed too much information, if that makes sense. And I'd like them to stick to that. Like, I mean, they've given enough of a teaser here to, and I don't mind a few more teasers maybe to, like, make sure they're enticing fans to give the book a shot. Fine, go ahead and do that. But keep a lot of this mystery in place, because I want to in September, like this Red Hood and the Outlaws. I like that the conversation that we're having here right now is, why are they outlaws? I don't want to know that before September. I want to know that in the book in September. I want to find that out there. I like that that's really, I know that these characters are in there. I don't know why they're together. I don't know what's put them in this place. I don't know if they're even going to agree with each other, whatever. I think that's cool. I want that to be the way it is when I pick up that issue in September and go page to page on that one. I want to read it that way. And I think it's great that a lot of these titles have really stuck to that. It's even though we know, like, for example, Green Lantern and Batman, we know that they're going to be really similar to what we've got now, but there's going to be some slight changes. I like that we don't know what those are. I think that's important. A mystery. I want to read and enjoy the book without knowing what's in all the 22 pages before I've gotten it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. This whole relaunch is actually allowing me to pick and choose a lot more. Where I'm going to get the first two issues of a bunch of series that I'm on the fence about, and then after those two issues, I'll probably not order the third. And if I like issue 1 and 2, I'll either pick it up in the store or I'll ask Cameron at DCBS to add it to my order. And there are a few books that I'm questioning right off the bat that I can have a nice trial for. And if I don't like it, then that's less money I'm spending every month. But this is what DC's allowing me to do right here, and I actually sort of appreciate that. Like, when it was first announced, I'm like, okay, I guess I can cut a lot of things. But now, as I've been hearing more and more about the titles, this sounds like it's still going to be a pretty cool universe to hang out in. So I'm actually pretty optimistic right now.
Guys, I got a question for you. With the way that they're structuring things now with the day-and-date digital, now, this offers an interesting opportunity for people who, like, hear buzz on a book that's good. Like, for example, let's say that there's titles that you aren't picking up in September. And 3 months later, 4 months later, you hear that title is really good. Do you see yourself, like, adding that title to your order and maybe trying digitally to get the issues, or, if you don't find them in your comic shop, would you pick up issues digitally, like 1, 2, and 3 or something, maybe of something digitally to read it so you have, the backstory before picking up the book, or are you not interested in digital? And there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm very curious to see how people are reacting to day-and-date digital. Does it influence you at all? Do you see it influencing you in any way?
My screen is too small. Okay. I mean, I only have an iPod Touch, so I can read comic books on it, but it's still not comfortable. If I ever did get an iPad, I'd probably wind up buying a lot more digital stuff. But for now, probably my greater option is to either A, wait for trade, or B, see if the Brooklyn Public Library gets it in and read it that way for the first arc. And then if I like it, then maybe I'll start picking it up in singles, or I'll wait for the next trade and then go from there. I've been doing that with a lot of stuff lately. I've been just getting it from the library, and it's been a great way to read stuff. Like, for instance, I stopped reading X-Men Legacy over at Marvel, and I found the trade that literally picks up exactly where I left off, and I'm going to read that. And if I like it, I'll read the next trade after that, and so on and so forth.
This is Mike Carey book too, right?
Yes, it is.
Which I love Mike Carey. I love the Unwritten.
Oh, so good.
And Legacy has been terrific. I actually read a lot of my Marvel in trades just because of the show to try and keep up with them. And Mike, I love Mike Carey. So we were mentioning the digital. You prefer to have it on some device that has an appropriate size screen than perhaps like a computer even on that end. Okay,
definitely.
Now, have you tried the smart panel thing that Comixology has?
You mean the the swiping and everything, and
it's like the panel by panel view rather than the whole page.
Yeah, no, I've tried that, and again, it's good, but I don't know that there's still something awkward about reading a comic book just on a screen that size for me. It's kind of how it feels in my hand. That's the weirdest part. Like I can't even watch video that much on the iPod Touch, and I thought I'd be watching a lot more videos than I am. It's just it's mostly in my pocket, listening to music or listening to a podcast while I read something physical. But if I ever were to get a, if I ever were to get a smaller laptop or an iPad, I probably would be doing it a lot more. It's just it's more. Yeah, no, it is more how it feels in my hand than anything else, and it might be weird to say, but that's kind of how I am on it right now. I mean, it's like when I'm holding it, I have the urge to hold it like a handheld like a handheld gaming system, like a Nintendo DS, and I don't know if that really works as well with reading comic books. So I need to either train myself to hold it somehow different, or just get used to it.
And I can't comment on that. I've comics digitally I've always read on the iPad. I have an iTouch, but my use for my iTouch is similar to what you do.
Yeah.
I use it mainly as a music podcast, that type of device. But Brent, what about you? What does digital in any way change any of this for you? I know you already mentioned the Comixology app before, so obviously you've used it. What role does that play for you? Does it change anything in September for you?
Well, for me, like what we were just talking about, if I hear something's good, I'll probably go back and on the Comixology app. I have a HTC Evo as my phone, so it's got a fairly large screen compared to other stuff that's out there. So, reading comics, I mean, I've read CBZ files on here where it's just a page, and if you turn it sideways, my phone has it's got like a kickstand, and the screen's large enough that it'll fit the width of a comic page pretty easily, turning it landscape, and then you can kind of zoom in and out with your thumbs if you need to really get in there. But, I read a couple issues like that pretty easily. And then the Comixology stuff, too, I've had, no qualms with it, the way that it works, at least on my phone. When I get an iPad, I'll probably be reading stuff on there. Someday I'd like to make the switch to digital, but the price point right now doesn't make sense. Like, I'm still, baffled at their same price points if they're one to entice new readers, and we kind of got into this on the Comic Timing episode. But
yeah, it's got to be 99 cents. Really,
we've talked. Yeah. It's probably been talked about to death on every podcast. But if there is something I want to check out, or if there's if there's like a huge spoiler on the internet for like the next event or something like that, you know what? On that day, I'll probably go on my phone and just pay $3 to read it right then and there, on my lunch break or something like that, rather than wait 2 weeks for the DCBS issues to come out. And then when it comes to my door, then I have the real issue and I'll reread it again and get more enjoyment out of it that way. So that's how I'm looking at it, as is a way to catch up and explore new things that I wouldn't normally get, because it's right there at my fingertips. And I've been doing that a lot. Like I said earlier, like the right now Comixology, it's until the 16th of July. So I don't know when this is going to come out or whatever, but it's the entire 27 issues for $25 digitally in a digital omnibus. So there's no chapter breaks. It's like 608 pages. It's all one file. Read it and go. And I saw that, I looked at it, and I was like, I'm going to get this, because there's probably no other way I'd read Planetary anytime soon. Just because cost prohibitive, and I'm still trying to pick up and finish 100 Bullets and Trades and Walking Dead and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot and show them that they need to do more stuff like this, because I'll jump on that.
Micah Griffin was on my show last episode, and he made mention of, with titles like Resurrection Man and stuff like that coming back, these omnibus things like you just mentioned with Planetary would be a great way to get fans excited for those titles, to do an omnibus of that on the app, something that, that can be for paper readers or for digital readers. It doesn't matter, what kind of reader you are of comics. There would be an incentive to grab that and do it, and it would support comic shops. I mean, I think at the end of omnibuses like that, then do a quick ad for local comic shops, because there's, that comic shop finder and all that. Do ads for both, and, get people to jump on books that way, by building a relationship at a great price point with characters and concepts and all that before they're released. I think it's pivotal that you do that before they're released, because that gets people saying, all right, this looked kind of cool to me, and you're giving me this at this insane price point. And, you get somebody that's read like maybe 5 of those issues, and I'm not talking about that's all they would get in there. Do the omnibus, like the planetary that Brent's talking about. I know exactly what he's talking about, and that's what you really want to do. But I'm saying you get people a few issues in, that's going to influence a pre-order of something. That's going to influence somebody calling up their comic shop and saying, hey, set this aside. That's going to influence somebody making a decision to buy it off of the app or do it from their mail order retailer, wherever, you get your comics. That's going to influence those decisions if they build a relationship with something after reading a few issues of it and something like that. So I don't know why we're not seeing more of that for September. Well,
and especially with previous series that, for characters that haven't had their books in quite a while, exactly with Resurrection Man, I am 100% in the camp of you, because I missed Resurrection Man the first time around. I only have a few issues here and there. And I know it's a terrific series. I've heard wonderful things about it, and I can't wait to pick it up, the new version. But if there was a digital bundle for Resurrection Man, this would be something that I would pick up, because it's easier than hunting down back issues. And because I know that the whole thing hasn't been traded, correct? I know that there might be one trade, I think, available for Resurrection Man, or if anything. But it's a heck of a lot easier to just buy all the issues of the old series on Comixology in a bundle and breeze through it and do it that way. Same can be said if you want to do like a bundle, say for like the Jason Rush Firestorm or something like that.
Sure,
that would be a good idea. Or something like for Mr. Terrific, maybe do a sampler of his best JSA issues. So just anything that would boost the ability for people to become more familiar with these new characters ahead of time might get more people to pick up the book once it actually comes out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, Brent mentioned those omnibuses. I'd like to see a lot more of those digital omnibuses. And then, do more of the omnibuses into the... Like, we are seeing more omnibuses solicited by DC. It's something that Marvel's been doing. I think these omnibuses are just great programs, whether it's digital or paper or whatever. Great way to get people to... Because we, as comic book fans, it's a completist hobby. You want to read whole stories. And Resurrection Man, I've got a couple issues here and there, too. What I read, I liked... I didn't have a whole lot of backstory, though. I read they were isolated, and it was at times where I didn't have the budget to then pursue reading more of it.
Sure.
So I'm excited to be on the ground floor launch of that. But gosh, if I could go in, for the same reason that you're mentioning, Ian, read like a whole run of it and in a really affordable price point, I would dive at that.
Yeah.
We all would. I think that they need to look at more of that with the digital apps. The day and date, I'm of two minds on the day and date as far as the price point, because I get the problem that they're in a real conundrum. You want to release a day and date for the people that want it digitally on day and date, but you also don't want to undersell your retailers so that you're taking away their business. And I get, there's that they got enough backlash by just doing it day and date at the same price. Imagine if they threw them out at 99 cents day and date. And I mean,
you would not make the retailers very happy about that.
Now, it does have the potential there to do an insane amount of new fans doing it that way, and it's an interesting gamble. I like that after 30 days it goes down to $1.99. I've said on the show before, if you're going to be doing this staged drop in price, then you need to announce that after 1 year, all titles 1 year old or older are 99 cents. I think it's not the ideal solution would be, we were talking about the Uniques and Rainbow in the Dark on your show, and those are CBZ files that are legal digital files that you pay 99 cents for on their site.
Yep.
And you can buy them all that way day and date, and they've got a wonderful digital business going there.
Yeah.
I understand why DC can't do that. I see that side of it, as far as, you really don't want to slap in your face. It's a tough balance. But I don't see any reason why you can't, build a 1 year later, quote unquote, digital audience who, trades. There's people who wait for the trade. People who wait for the 1 year later to then jump on board. That's money in your pocket later. And you're not competing with the now, we've got to get our books now, us comic fans that way. So I'd like to see that as maybe a potential solution to, do this staged price drop. Do the $2.99 out the door, $1.99 after 30 days, and then 1 year later, 99 cents across the board. And start getting those fans that you didn't catch the first time around that are then going to follow each, and then release them. Every month they would then get a new set of 99-cent books that they could pick up, and you're building a new set of fans that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a digital dollar bin.
Right.
That's exactly what it is, and that's exactly what they could call the service.
I love that.
Digital dollar bin, right?
But it's also a digital dollar bin where you're guaranteed to follow it monthly, because every month you would have, last September's books, next September, 99 cents. October's books, 99 cents. So, you've got that kind of phase where they could then follow them. And it is going to be the fans that aren't afraid to wait for a year. But they're the ones, they weren't going to buy it out of the starting gate at the price point you had it anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to wait a year. It's worth it for me to have it now. But I do think that there are fans who would buy it a year later at 99. I think 99 cents is the digital sweet spot. I really do.
Yeah, especially if you offer a deal, say like, 10 issues for $9 or something like that. That would be even better, but I mean, I doubt that would actually happen. What the 99 cents is the sweet point for a lot of people. It is for songs. I mean, Amazon offers songs for 69 cents now, which is outstanding, but I know that they're actually losing money on a bunch of that, so I wouldn't want the comics industry to do that. No. What I would like to see, though, is that if basically this digital initiative that's beginning now is going to have to succeed in order for us to see dollar books down the road. Because what I fear happening here, and who knows if it'll happen, this is just speculation. I fear that if more people do not start picking up the books at the price point that it's currently at, and a month down the road, if more people do not start doing that, then DC or Marvel or both are going to view this as a failed experiment, and then they're just going to try something entirely new and different, and it might not necessarily be better. So this is going to be this is a trial basis, and this is also a pivotal point in digital for comic books right now. I mean, if this succeeds, then we'll see more along this line, possibly with cheaper price points. If this doesn't succeed, then everything goes out the window, and then they're going to say, "Hey, we need to try something new," and who knows if that new will actually be better. I think
there's two different animals there, though. I know what you're saying. First of all, this needs to succeed in order for them to continue doing the day-and-date digital the way that they are. Yeah. So I agree with that. I think the $1.99 after 30 days needs to succeed in order for them to continue that. But the 99-cent bundles, I think what's going to determine whether or not those are successful is going to be things like, how did this Planetary Omnibus do? How did they do these 101 issues at 99 cents? How are those doing? If those are doing well, I think you're going to start seeing more 99-cent price point specials from them. And if they start realizing that those are outselling any other digital initiative they have, then I think we stand a chance of seeing more 99 cents when they start to realize that's the price point. So what I would tell people, if you want comic companies like the big two to realize that there is a certain price point sweet spot, pay attention to when they run sales and things like that. And I'm not saying buy things you don't want. Do what Brent did. Brent liked that omnibus, bought the omnibus. Pay attention to these apps, look at the news, and pick up what you are interested in when it's offered at that price. Just like you do when you go to a comic shop. If you like dollar bins, you go into a comic shop and you shop the dollar bins. So go in the shop and shop the dollar bins because they'll put out more of them because they want to make money. So you got to do the same thing, with these apps. It's a very similar scenario system. Is you buy it at the price point you want it at when it's available at that price point. They'll know to do more. If you don't, and let people know that those things are happening at that price point. Like right now we talk about these different sales and initiatives. Hopefully that'll get people, like, they're going to miss obviously the planetary one because this will be released after that because that's only a couple days from now. But that lets people know that they're doing these things with the apps, and maybe somebody who's interested in dabbling in digital might want to go that route versus getting all their books that way. They like, because I'm a hybrid. I like paper, but I do get digital, like the Uniques and Rainbow in the Dark that you're talking about. I'm going to keep following those in digital just because that's the way I started picking them up.
Sure.
So that's not going to change the way I buy my paper books. I'm still going to buy my paper books the same way I do, but these are two new books that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise. And I like that and I'm buying it direct from the self-publisher, so that 99-cent price point for me is a sweet spot, and I know they're getting the money, so it's kind of a cool thing. So
and Digital Dollar Bin is copyright Ian Levinstein, all rights reserved. So if DC wants to use it or Marvel wants to use it, I'll be the check's in the mail. I'll be waiting for my compensation.
I could care less if they give you any money. Just put it at the 99-cent price.
Oh man, I got to make a living somehow.
Guys, is there anything else you want to throw in before we wrap this up?
Nah, I think we've exhausted almost everything that's ever happened in the DC universe in the last few years. I think we're pretty good.
Oh, I don't know about that. I know we can keep going for another 3 hours like we always do. But guys, I want to thank both of you for coming in and joining me on this episode. It was funny. It was one of those things when Jim said he was going on his trip to Italy. We were going to record, a bunch of episodes beforehand, so then we didn't have that issue. And I said, this is a good chance to bring some friends back on the show that we haven't had a chance to do this with. And I'm glad we did this because it was great to talk with you guys, both on your show, and it was actually really fun to be a part of that because I got to read something and chat about something outside of DC, which I don't get a whole lot of chance to do on your show. So I want to thank you for the invite to come on your podcast as well, Comic Timing. So, guys, be sure, anybody listening, be sure to check out Comic Timing. And there'll be links in the show notes to make sure to check out that episode. Is there anything you guys want to shout out about Comic Timing before we wrap up?
Well, episode 133 is going to be released probably by the time this episode is out. And I intentionally delayed this episode because when we originally released it, we were like, let's get this out right away because we were talking about the DC reboot, but not all the news was out yet. So I thought to myself, what would be great? If this was a time capsule of just all the things that we got right and all the things that we got wrong. So I'm going to release it this week, and you'll be able to see just how correct and incorrect we were about the DC relaunch. So you can check that out. That's episode 133, and then 123. That is 123.5 is the Adam and Comfort episode with Sean and Brent and myself. We talk about Unique's Tales, and Rainbow in the Dark. And also, I've still got a bunch of Super Show interviews sitting in the can that need to be released eventually. So those will slowly trickle out, either attached to episodes or as an episode sometime in the near future. So you can check it out at comictiming.net. And Brent, you doing anything or not?
Blue Beetle, number 2.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
There we go. Yeah. Blue Beetle number 2
it'll be an October relief. Please, yes, I'll be back.
And thanks for having us, Sean. It's always fun to talk to you.
Oh, pleasure to talk to both of you guys. So
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
I want to once again thank Ian, Brent, and all of our callers this week for participating in the show. And next week, Jim's going to be back. I don't know what we're discussing yet. Jim's got a lot of books that he's reading, so we're going to be making that up this week. One of the things I know that I do want to discuss, if not this week, it's going to be the week after for sure, is the ending of that War of the Green Lanterns. If you haven't read the last issue of War of the Green Lanterns, do yourself a favor. I did not see that coming. And I'm very excited to talk about the whole War of the Green Lanterns thing and how that all wrapped up. So definitely check that one out. And Our sponsors this episode are once again DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, all 52 DC #1 titles at that special discount, $159.48 regularly, 50% off, only $79.74. Over at InStockTrades.com, Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen Volume 1 trade paperback, $14.95 regularly, 38% off, only $9.27. We're going to be talking about that on the show in August. And remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So it's great if there's been some trades that you've been looking for or hardcovers you've been looking for. Great chance to grab a bunch of those together and come and join us for that episode. But that'll be in August. We'll be discussing that. Remember our show summer contest? The last day of July in any time zone. And that should be once again emailed to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading summer contest. Details are on our website, ragingbullets.com. I want to remind everyone, hey, listen, I'm on Google Plus now. Also on Facebook. I regularly post on Twitter. And, our Raging Bullets site is your link to all those things. I haven't put Google Plus up there, but I will make sure that it's up there by then. I'm also on Steam. I've got a Steam account for PC games and stuff like that. So if anyone wants to join me on any of those games or things like that, feel free to add me on Steam. So we will see everyone next week.
Ciao. Arrivederci.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.